Hello again, friends! And you are our friends, and welcome back to another edition of Jim Cornette's Drive Thru right here, wherever you are on this beautiful fall day, or rainy fall day. It's raining right now. It's a nasty day here in northern New Jersey, but I'm your host, the great Brian Last. We have reviews, questions, songs, and who knows what else right here on the show. And of course, these questions will be answered by the man who will be doing these reviews, the post office ninja once again, Mr. Jim Cornette.
Oh, good Lord. You were like AEW last week. You went from beautiful to nasty in the same sentence, practically. From Wednesday to Friday, we had a complete reversal, and you did the same thing there. A beautiful fall day turns into a nasty, rain-filled, treacherous, gloomy time of the year to you. How is that a way to start this show? Is it all downhill from here? Or is it all uphill from here? Have we solved that yet? When somebody's been ill and they're getting better, does that mean that can't mean they're going uphill? It has to mean they're going downhill. If you're getting better, you're not making a slog up the hill. You're coasting down the hill. We gotta straighten these things out.
We do, and no one said anything about treachery. You said it was a treacherous fall day. I don't know what's on your mind.
I thought we were going to do a show filled with funness and frivolity and shenanigans and tomfoolery here on the program to make people laugh and smile, and already you've just trashed the weather, set the stage. It was a dark and stormy night when they did the drive-thru. Like everything's going to be horrible, just because most of the things we're going to talk about today are going to be horrible.
That's right. Speaking of drive-thru, what are your thoughts about the idea that Wendys now has new French fries?
You cocksucker, as Brute Bernard would say. every time Brute Bernard cussed somebody, you would say because he was French Canadian too, right? Cocksucker, you got the new French fries. Before I haven't had Wendys in months and months and months, because since I don't travel the highways and byways of the United States anymore, I don't constantly buzz past drive-thrus, and I've had plenty of the Grub Hubs and the Uber Eats and the delivery food, but I'm not going to have Wendys delivered if I'm going to that extent.
Why not?
Because you can have major restaurants, major motion pictures restaurants and sitcoms deliver these days. So you don't need to just get a sack of Wendys. But you had the French fries before I did. I still haven't had them. I don't know anything about it.
And that's why I phrased my question the way I did. I didn't say, hey, how delicious are they? I said, what do you think about the idea that they are introducing new French fries, that McDonald's has a recipe that everyone loves? It's like crack. Wendys, once again, changing the recipe. What does that say to you about Wendys, and what are your thoughts about the idea that they are changing the recipe?
It's about goddamn time. Because I don't know why they changed the fries. They had great fries years ago, as you'll recall. Are you old enough to recall that?
I'm old enough.
When they had wonderful, and they were long, and they were crispy, and they were succulent and golden brown even across the length and breadth of them, and salty. And instead they go with these skin-on sea salt. You can't tell the past few years, especially when they get cold, whether you're eating the fries or the packages of sea salt that come with them. So it's about time they changed it. Now, if they'll go back to the regular pickles and start mashing the patties again, they screwed that up several years ago. I remember the first time I got one of the new plumper patties that it's not any more meat. The flatter patties were bigger around. These are just fucking more evenly shaped, like they just press them out by the thousands. The first time I got one, it was wrapped up. I said, this is not right. It's too thick. They put something wrong on here. And then I opened it up. I said, well, the patties are too thick. That's odd. And then I started getting more and more of them, and I realized it was a trend. They had changed their entire philosophy. And the people that used to work at Wendys or still do, they know what I'm talking about. They don't flatten those bad boys enough anymore. And they changed the pickles to that bread and butter, sweet and sour, whatever the fuck. They're not dill. I hate change. You're aware of this.
If we had an investor come along, because I'll never invest my money in a restaurant. If we had an investor come along that said, I love what you say. I am a believer. I am a fan of old school fast food. They've fucked everything up. You're right. These kids today, they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
You're not out of touch. I'm going to open up a fast food place, a drive-through place. We're going to do it the way you want it. You supervise. We'll put your name on it. But what are your thoughts? Would you do that? Would you get behind a fast food establishment?
Well, it has to depend on whether or not that investor was well-versed in the restaurant industry. Because as you said, you don't want to invest your money because that's not your area of expertise. My area of expertise in the restaurant industry is from the consumer standpoint. It's a hard business, but if you could find someone that knew that business, then of course I would lend my consumer expertise from 40 years of traversing the travails of the fast food experience, and I could polish that bad boy up in no time at all.
All right, stay tuned, 2024.
But in the meantime, let me tell you what happened to me day before yesterday. It was over a couple of day period, real quickly. This is your show. I'd hate to take it over.
Please.
But I mentioned last week on the experience that I'd had last week. We had the castle, the circuit breaker boxes, the electricians out, Schleppinger and Sons. Of course, old man Schleppinger, he finally passed away, but the Sons are still around. The oldest electrical firm in town, I mentioned this. They're 76 years old apiece. Bless them. And they rewired the circuit breaker boxes, and they did some other stuff and everything, and things were just swell. But then late Saturday night, I came around the corner up the stairs. I was starting to come down the stairs. I wanted to go get a cold drink out of the refrigerator before I laid my weary head down to sleep. And the whole kitchen is dark. And there's a light that we leave on 24 hours a day. And a bulb must have blown. So I go down there and I said, as soon as I get me my cold drink, I'll change this bulb and then go to bed. And I open the refrigerator and the refrigerator's off. No power. Hell, what the fuck? So now I go out to the brand new, souped up, completely labeled, all new circuit breaker box, and none of the circuit breakers are tripped. But I see the one refrigerator, it's labeled anyway, so I flip it back, come back in, still nothing. Well, now I'm, Stace, we got to figure this out, come down here. Maybe they've mislabeled it. Something else, so I've got her standing in the kitchen, and the doors open out to the garage, and I'm in the laundry room in a circuit breaker box, and I'm flipping shit. Now, no! God damn it! Now I've woke myself up, where I was about to go to sleep, and also I can't figure out why only half the kitchen has power. One end of the kitchen has power, the other end of the kitchen don't have no power. Including, as I mentioned, the refrigerator, so all my shit's melted. And I thought, and it's late at night, and in my mind I was thinking it has to be in the circuit breaker box because they've just left something loose because they've just been in that, and this has never happened before. So I had in my mind that the plugs on the refrigerators, those big plugs, like you got for the stove, and I couldn't run a extension cord on it, and I didn't look to validate that opinion. I just assumed it. Well, I'll call them in the morning because Schleppinger and Sons, they're on call 24 hours a day, basically, because they sleep in shifts. One will be awake and the other will be asleep, and you see how that goes. And neither one of them sleeps too long at a time because there's incontinence issues and it gets messy. But so I knew I could call them first thing on Sunday morning. They'd come right over. Well, I did call them first thing on Sunday, and they answered right away, but I didn't realize that the shuttle from the home, the driver is off on Sundays, so they couldn't come over till Monday morning. But they said, well, you can run an extension cord to the refrigerator. And that's when I got the flashlight and looked behind the refrigerator and saw that the plug was indeed one that you could. So I got an extension cord, run it into the next room. So the refrigerator's running again. And Monday morning, finally, out comes, he got just one son. Just one, okay, Cosmo. He came out and he said, "Whoa, I can't figure out what might have caused this." What happened? And I told him what happened. And he looked around and he looked at the plug where the light doesn't work. And he looked at the plug where the refrigerator doesn't work. And he looked at the plug underneath the kitchen cabinet and where the upper cabinet and where the toaster is sitting in front of. And he took his finger and he reached out and he pressed a little button on that outlet and everything came on. It's a black outlet and it's underneath the cabinet and behind the toaster, as I mentioned. And I didn't know that there was one of them little circuit breaker Duma flickies on there. And that would have solved the whole problem. So I've made fun of Vince McMahon in the past, Brian, for
That's right.
For having the cable repairman come over because the mute button was hit on the remote. But now I've joined, but I did not, like Vince did, I did not tip Cosmo Schleppinger $100 like Vince did to the cable guy. But that's what it was.
Cheapskate.
Well, hey, goddamn, I just paid them. I paid them the equivalent of a lot of money. The equivalent of it. We'll talk about that later. But anyway, so that's what happened to me this past weekend. How was your weekend? I know you were fielding a lot of angry missives from the cult of Cornette. They still hadn't heard the experience. Some people still hadn't got the word that the people have been up in arms, and some have loved it, some have hated. There's been polarizing opinions on the art on our official Jim Cornette YouTube channel because everybody has not got the word yet. Apparently, the Travis Heckles he's been feeling puny, under the weather, and he's been off for God. It's only been now a week, and you would have thought the world had come to an end, and everybody, we're trying to get the word out. Not only get well, Travis, he's going downhill right now. It's all downhill from here.
Stop that! Travis. No, he's on the upswing.
Getting better.
Yes, upswing.
He's getting better. He's on. Well, I guess the upswing would be a way to put it, but not going uphill. But he's getting better, but we've got guest artists filling in during that period of time. And you know, people, it was a shock because of certainly they didn't want, Travis is very popular. They didn't want him to be excommunicated or like we'd fired him or something like that. So he's enjoyed the outpouring of love and affection from all of the Cult of Cornette members. But get well, and happy birthday, Aiden.
That's right.
His son, who may take over. If Travis keeps going downhill, maybe we just get Aiden to do it.
Travis is on the upswing. He's not going downhill.
He's pushing up that hill. Any day now, he'll be pushing up to the top of that hill.
He's going to push you down that hill. Keep this up. But you brought up the guest artists, Jim. I do want to bring up some of the guest artists. They've done such great work, and you're going to be seeing more of them and some other ones too. But we mentioned previously Matthew Kaplowitz. You can check out his YouTube channel, youtube.com/nerdnewstoday, or I guess just search for Nerd News Today on YouTube. That may be the easiest way to do that. He also has the Trek Untold podcast, which is available wherever you find your favorite podcast. You'll be seeing more of his artwork. Also want to make mention...
Kaplowitz!
And Jim likes yelling his name.
Kaplowitz! Yes! Kaplowitz!
Also want to make mention of Brian Long, who did some great pieces. We thank him. The mysterious Jackson Thomas, who is the casualty, who saw the feedback from the listeners on YouTube and went into hiding, and we have not heard back from him in several fucking days. And that's a shoot. The guy fucking disappeared. So everyone, ease up. Travis is ill, and we certainly don't want anyone to try to do Travis's style. So we're bringing in some other really talented people, and everything they're doing is really great stuff. And also the one that we just released a couple of his pieces and is getting a big reaction, Big Kaz. And you can go to Instagram.com.
And not the other one they may be thinking about.
Who's the other one they may be thinking about?
That Big Cass.
No, that's Big Cass. This is Big Kaz. He's good.
Yeah, well, see, it's only a fucking letter away.
let me spell his letters because that's in his Instagram, B-I-G-G. There's 2 G's there.
Oh.
C-A-Z. So Instagram.com/Big Kaz, also on Facebook.
So Big Kaz has 1 G and 2 S's, but Big Kaz has 2 G's and 1 Z.
And I'm pretty sure he was Big Kaz years before Big Kaz even took up wrestling. But as I was saying, Facebook.com/Big Kaz. People have loved the artwork they've been seeing. You're going to be seeing a lot more. And we thank all of our guest artists. And of course, get well soon, Travis Heckle. We can't wait to have your work back on the channel because he is such a big part of everything we do. And everyone loves what he does, including us. No one loves it more than us. But get well soon, Travis.
And Alan Smithy also will be contributing some art next week. And you know, somebody said, well, why did you have him do it like Travis did it? That's like, how do you know, it's a fingerprint. It's a style. And we would not want to put out counterfeit Heckles. We wouldn't want to emit counterfeit Heckles out in the world. So we wanted to make it obvious and upfront.
My family did all the commercial printing for Andy Warhol. And when Andy Warhol died, and I'm trying to remember, I was a kid. I think it was 87. I could be wrong. It's around there. We were in Florida, and my dad was still up at in the office. And when Andy Warhol died, his representative with us, Rupert Smith, ran into the factory and started signing everything Andy Warhol. And that wasn't the first time, I'm sure. And I'm sure it wasn't the last time. So, and that's kind of part of Warhol, though. There's a lot of Warhols out there that are signed to Andy Warhol that he didn't even come close to. But people who worked for him did, and he okayed them doing it. So it's bizarre. But that's not how we treat Travis.
It was a forgery with permission.
That's right.
Speaking of forgeries with permission, the all new JimCornette.com that we've all been waiting for so long with such bated breath. You might have wondered what that odor was. Now will be unveiled, unleashed, launched, let loose upon the world this coming Friday, October 1st, after 6 p.m. Eastern. We say after because we're not sure exactly how quick the transition will be when we put everything up live on this new platform. I don't understand these things, as you know, but we're going for the evening after 6 p.m. on Friday, October 1st. I'm not daring anybody to crash anything, but it should, from what I've been told, be fairly difficult to do so. And it should serve our purposes, which is to let everybody see this fabulous new website that Hotchkiss Featherbottom has built with his own 2 hands, his own formerly 11, now 9 stubby little fingers. And also, as I've mentioned, the Cornette's collectibles will be on sale for a limited period of time. I don't know how many orders we're going to get. I don't know if people are pissed off or if they're taking this opportunity because they know it may be their last if I don't continue this chaos in the future. But the action figures, the books, the DVDs, the etc., the T-shirts that everybody's been waiting for. I've been getting tweets. Cornette, open the store. I want a shirt. I hate that I'm letting the cult of Cornette go without clothing on their backs. So all that will be on sale when we open up, and the store will stay open until I get so many orders that I can't fill them before Christmas. And I don't know if that's going to be a week or 5 days or who knows. So as Nick Goulas used to say, get your tickets early, folks. We're in store for an all-time record-breaking crowd. Friday, October 1st after 6 in the evening, Eastern.
If everything works out, maybe you can handle the sale of my chair on the website.
Well, I think we can do that. Well, I could be in charge of your chair, Brian, because you could just send that thing down here to me and I will take it apart piece by piece, take an axe to the rest of it, send you a check for $500 and tell you I sold everything.
All right, I'll take it. $500, I'll take it.
Yeah, well, but it might get lost. It might get lost in the mail.
In Teterboro.
It'll be stuck in Teterboro. Actually, you'll be seeing pieces of that thing on the black market for years to come if you send it to me.
Well, if I thought you had any idea how to access the black market, I'd believe you there. But, Jim, let's talk about other things.
Hey, there's an alleyway over in St. Matthews. You can get anything. hot car stereos, brand new looking 8-track players. I'm telling you.
All right, well, let's get you out of the alley and let's go, I guess, into the gutter. Let's talk a little bit about something happening in WWE, because we have received a lot of questions sent into CornyDriveThru@gmail.com in the last couple of days after the WWE Extreme Rules pay-per-view event, extravaganza, some might say. A new episode of the Broken Skull Session, Steve Austin's interview show with Seth Rollins.
Can you imagine, by the way, if the host of the Broken Skull Sessions was not Steve Austin, but it was Barbara Walters?
Barbara Walters.
Then we could have the Broken Skull Sessions with Baba Wawa.
And who would her guest have been this week?
It would have been Seth Rollins.
And of course, that's what everyone's been sending their questions about. Seth Rollins on the show. Several things he talked about, including how he adapted into the WWE system, including apparently an incident where he wanted to punch out Vince. How much of this have you seen? How much of this are you aware of?
Well, since it was called to my attention, my name was invoked, I believe the quote was. I watched part of the show because I was assuming it was a 30-minute show or maybe a 60-minute show, and I watched the first, quite a good little chunk of it, and then I paused it to go to the restroom and saw that it was like an hour and 45 minutes. I didn't have that much time, so I got to about the point that they formed the Shield, and I have not seen past that. But yes, to answer some of the questions, the account that Seth Rollins, a.k.a. Tyler Black, to me and all of the Ring of Honor fans 10 years ago, that he gave of my phone call to him, pleading with him not to sign anything with TNA was accurate. There was more detail that could have been gone into. He showed me the deal or didn't show, but it sent me the deal so that I could see it. We weren't in the same room. And it was based on basically TNA running a lot of shows that I don't think they ended up running, and doing a lot of things that I don't think they ended up doing for everybody, to the point where it was that good. And I said, oh God, no, you can do better, because besides that, you'll be forgotten in history if you go into that black hole. So that account was fairly accurate. And I liked seeing some of the older footage, and I also liked hearing about his time in FCW. He was correct in saying that if he'd come along in NXT, he probably would have progressed quicker. By the same token, I don't know if he would have lasted as long or if he would have gotten as good a chance as he did, because we've seen what they've done with the guys in NXT for the last 4 or 5 years. They can wrestle their ass off. That ain't the problem. The problem is when they get to the main roster and become Bearcats and Demolition Light. But yeah, when he went to FCW, I remember, because I asked a few times through back channel ways of communication, how's Tyler Black doing? God, he's so good. And I was looking at the names, and in some cases footage of the guys that were down there at that time, and I'm like, how is he not the star of this show? As because at that point in time, besides the confrontations he had with Terry Taylor, where Terry Taylor was going to come in and teach one specific way, at that point in time, FCW just didn't understand how to be a developmental program. I think that they were thinking that it was going to be a local, at least Steve Kern was, that it was going to be a self-sustaining local territory, which was hard enough for us to do here in Louisville. We had one that could have been and was, with Danny involved after the fact, self-sustaining as a little local territory. But that was Louisville, and with strong television and a history of talent, and Louisville being a wrestling town anyway, and not Florida, with every city in Florida of any note being burnt out by independence and or free wrestling from everybody from TNA on down, it wasn't going to work. And we knew that. I knew that when they formed FCW. But anyway, so the point is, I can see where he didn't fit in, and they weren't going to let him fit in there. But as the transition came more towards the modern era of the developmental, and he became the first NXT guy because, as he said, our first NXT champion, he became more of a company guy and started doing shit the way they wanted to do it. Now you can tell he feels vindicated, like I was right all along, which he was, but he didn't have the fucking cachet in the industry to say that yet.
I thought that part was interesting, just the whole idea that it seemed to me it was all about breaking them down, getting them to just accept everything they want them to do. I mean, the whole attitude of like everything you did before this is meaningless. You can go right back there. The conversation with Triple H, you're this close to being fired. We'll send you right back to Ring of Honor. Like that was a punishment. To work that style and work that place was a punishment. And they just broke him down and he became Mr. WWE.
And go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it. It's weird. Him smiling, explaining that story. Basically, yeah, I came in there. I was incredibly talented. Everyone who knew anything about wrestling who had seen me told me how great I was. They told me I sucked and I had to do everything their way. And I did it. And I just did it.
And I know there's going to be people out there going, oh, Cornette is complaining about him teaching old school and blah, blah, blah. No. Again, people do not understand. Yeah, you can ask most of the young talent that I've worked with over the last 20 years. There's some that didn't get the fucking picture, possibly because of their inflated opinion of their own self-worth. But you don't take a guy that's gotten to a spot because he stood out for one reason or another and tell him not to do any of that anymore. You explain to him or try to help him figure out how to apply that in the right places at the right times for the place he wants to go. And there is all the Ring of Honor guys, they were getting over with the Ring of Honor fans, and they were getting that style over, and they were getting themselves over. But they had to learn, as many of them did, that when you go to a bigger company where there's more money on the line, not only do they not want you to take as many risks on hurting yourself, but they don't want you to take as many risks on hurting somebody else because there's money. That's why Cena was so safe, for lack of a better word, in his style and got into his pattern. It's because once he got over like that, they didn't want to take any fucking chances. But also you try to teach guys who may have a talent for running as fast as any human being can run, but if you need them to be a fucking hurdler, they need to learn how to jump over the shit and use their speed in that way. You teach them how to apply their gifts and their talents and what's different about them in a way that also makes logical sense for a larger audience, instead of people who fixate on the 45th Omagarami knee lift or whatever the fuck, right? That's what you do when you're trying to get guys with raw talent and a lot of potential, experience, and ready for a bigger money spot in wrestling, wherever that may be at the time. So you can't just, break everybody down and start them from scratch. Why are they there to begin with? You're supposed to teach them how to think about the wrestling business as a concept, and then how to guard their physical well-being by pulling out their big shit when they need it, but not beating everybody over the head with it where everybody's doing the same shit. Does that make any sense?
Yes, it does.
But anyway, so that, and the time, apparently, we now know, remember the worst. What made me start disliking, I think, Seth Rollins and the Fiend and anybody associated with the whole company at that time was that stinker of a match that Seth had with Bray Wyatt when he was the Fiend at that point, right? Or what? I can't remember.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, we hated it. Come to find out, he hated it too. And that was not in any way the match they were going to have. And basically, apparently, Vince said, no, do this. And as soon as Seth comes back from the ring at the gorilla position, he said he wanted to. He didn't say I wanted to draw back and punch him. He was going to go after Vince. Something was going to happen. There was There was heat. He was vibrating. And other people came over, and Vince just left the room, but they locked eyes because it stunk, and everybody knew it stunk. And that's what Vince apparently told him to do. So remember, I can't remember all the particulars, but we even said somebody must, I think that's the one where he said somebody must have made them do this because nobody could have thought this was good. But he didn't, and we know that for a fact now. But God, I mean, I've seen guys look at old shit stain like that back in the Attitude Era when they came back and they had 3 minutes of Raw to do a 6-man tag with an interview and an afterbirth with a heel turn, and it, you know, stunk, and they all wanted to choke him. But I've never seen anybody specifically want to go after Vince like that. But I haven't been around in recent times.
Did you see Bray Wyatt tweeted about it?
I did not.
Bray Wyatt said, "Wait until you hear my reaction." That could be interesting when Bray Wyatt starts talking about his thoughts about all the stupid things that we assume he wanted to do. We'll see how many of the things he wanted to do were things he wanted to do.
Well, and maybe being burned alive on live national, worldwide, global television wasn't his idea.
Did you like your gimmick being taken away and just given to a girl, and, and then you were just taken off TV and fired? What'd you think about that? Also, obviously, Seth Rollins did mention there's some heat right now with you guys, which was right after Steve Austin, as happy as possible, said, "I love Jim Cornette."
And then poor Seth, knowing that his wife would probably be watching this show, said, "Well, there's still a little heat with some things he said about Becky, but I learned a lot." And he was a very dedicated wrestler, talent member of the talent roster, pupil, student, whatever of wrestling at that time. And he, as I mentioned, I've raved about Tyler Black's match with Davey Richards and Tyler Black and Austin Aries, and et cetera, et cetera. I just, whatever they've done to poor Seth Rollins, I haven't been a fan. I still want to know what he'd sound like today if he was doing wrestling promos about a wrestling angle he was in involving a championship rather than doing the sports entertainment high school drama class bullshit that they give him all the time.
That is one of the things I thought watching this, is that I don't mind him here. When he does his wrestling promos, I hate him. Seeing the real guy talk here, and yeah, he's a little arrogant at times and everything, and that works. Why isn't that the guy I'm seeing do the promos? That guy's interesting. The guy doing the promos is trying to be interesting.
Well, yes, because he's trying to recite material that nobody wants to hear spoken. And and he does stupid things that nobody would ever do in real life, which on camera, which is apparently now we found out quite a bit beyond his control. And it's amazing that it used to be that guys in the business had kind of less personality off camera sometimes than they did. I mean, there were the Dick Murdochs. They were just 100% over the top wherever you went. But sometimes guys were quite Jimmy Valiant off camera, but on camera, when they're on TV, whatever, they're over the... Now, guys are more interesting off camera than they are on camera, where they look like a bunch of fucking dipshits reciting, hostage statements.
Well, one thing Seth Rollins can do, he can't go back in time. He can't get back in a DeLorean and go to TNA and hang out with Dixie and maybe have some wine in the hotel and who knows what happens from there. He can't do any of that. But he could have a painting made of whatever would happen in the hotel with Dixie and wine. He could have all of that in a wonderful oil painting.
Now, wait a minute. Why are you fingering him with the Dixie and the wine and things? He wasn't there and around that.
I'm not talking about anything with Seth Rollins and Dixie and fingering. That wasn't my intentions. What I'm saying is, more than likely, handsome guy, maybe someone would want to hang out with him and drank some wine and seen where the night took them. You never know. That's my point.
Spill the wine. Take that. Anyway.
Biggest mistake of his career was getting away from war If Eric Burden had stayed with War, his career would have been much better.
If Eric Burden had only stayed with War, and folks, if we had stayed with the direction of this transition, then the spot would have started so much quicker. Folks, if you want to make your own reality, or if you want to relive a reality that you weren't able to get a photo of, or if you just like to have a professional hand-painted portrait created from any photo at a truly affordable price and done by one of a team of world-class artists, look no further than paintyourlife.com. We've said so many times you can turn memories into art. It's a great idea for birthdays, anniversaries, weddings, special occasions, and it's not as expensive as you would imagine when you hear custom painting from world-class artists. Oh no, the folks at paintyourlife.com make these things affordable and accessible. You can choose from your team of, or from a team, or your team, or the A-team, or fucking Mr. T. But Mr. T does not paint any of these portraits, however he has posed for a few. However,
you can join the A-team in a portrait.
You can have a portrait of yourself as a member of the A-team if you enjoy that type of thing. Or you can choose from a team of world-class artists and work with them on the details and order your custom-made hand-painted portrait in less than 5 minutes. You can receive your portrait in as little as 2 weeks. It can be from a photograph or a combination of photographs. So put generations of the family together. Bring all your former pets together in a puppy bowl of epic proportions. Whatever you want can be created for you at Paint Your Life, because it's your life, they're painting it, and you get to pick. So put yourself up there having hot donkey sex with Arnold Schwarzenegger. I don't care what you do. It's your life. Anyway, right now, if you text 64,000, or if you text the word drive to 64,000, we've gone over this before. You text the word to the number.
That's right.
I've never texted, so I'm still in the dark about these things. But text the word drive to 64,000. That's drive, D-R-I-V-E, to 64,000. And you'll get 20% off your painting for a limited time only. There's no risk. If you don't love the final painting, your money is refunded, guaranteed. So text drive to 64,000, 20% off your painting and free shipping. PaintYourLife.com. Celebrate the moments that matter most. Terms apply. Available at PaintYourLife.com/terms.
And while we celebrate the moments that mattered most, let's talk about a show that mattered the least. Jim, did you watch Smackdown?
I'm afraid I did there, Brian. Oh, boy. You know, they ought to really just call it the Reigns and Heyman. I can't say hour because it's 2 hours. The Reigns and Heyman show. The Reigns and an evening with Heyman and Reigns. Something like that, because I'm skipping through. That's pretty much all I'm interested in. This was for, go ahead.
I was going to say, you didn't watch Becky? Becky did a couple
Well,
promos.
I did watch Becky.
Okay.
I was about to say, a SmackDown on September 24th. And I'll tell you this, because as them starting with an interview brought up something. I talked to somebody last week, smart to the business, but not in it, especially these days, hadn't been to a television taping in 20 years, but was familiar in the old days with shows. And was at the SmackDown in Knoxville. And basically, it's what it looks like. I look at the television show as a television show, but I also look at it as a live event experience because I've run so many events that we tape for television, and I know the points where people in the building that paid money get pissed off and why, right? So I look for that. And they've got a really slick format on SmackDown on Fox now where as soon as somebody makes an entrance, they're using that as a tool to hook people. Okay, a star is on the way to the ring, but we're going to show you the backstory, and they do the history package. But during that history package, which are sometimes lengthy, the star gets in the ring and stands there. And used to, when we had live interviews as a talent, I've done it, or I would, let people know to do it. While you're doing a VTR, keep the people fucking occupied, because we didn't used to have the Titantron, and you didn't used to be able to pipe that into the building, right? So you'd work the people and you'd yell and fight. They feel like they're involved in something. But now the talent, even if they're supposed to be mad or fucking happy or whatever, they just stand there motionless, and you can tell on their face kind of going over their lines while the cameraman stands in front of them motionless, waiting for a cue, and everybody in the building is supposed to watch the big screen. So they've paid $50 to come and watch television. And the commercial breaks too. It's a live show, so you've got stretches of 6, 7, 8 minutes where people are either watching talent stand in the ring during a commercial or supposed to be watching the Titantron for what's going on instead of getting any live entertainment. And that was the feedback. Talent standing there doing nothing for ages, nobody trying to work the crowd, just waiting for a cue. The dark match after television was 10 minutes of, chuckle fucks playing slap and tickle and 2 minutes of action. People shit missed by a foot, but it's covered by the camera angle. See, this is from somebody who hasn't seen pretty much live wrestling in quite a while and goes as wet as a hoot this time. It's sort of like these television tapings now, obviously because they're getting the rights fees from the networks or whatever, but they're still charging people to come in the building. And it's like they're charging, you're standing on the corner at a movie location shoot, but the movie company comes by and charges you $50 to stand there and watch them shoot it. And it didn't used to be that way. You've been to television tapings from the big companies or television shoots, pay-per-view, whatever the fuck, in the 90s, and they tried to make the live event audience as welcome as they did the TV audience. Am I overstating this?
No, I don't think so. I think that's correct. Of course that's correct. I mean,
so that's, but anyway, and I notice it now that I'm looking for it on SmackDown especially, is what are those people doing in the building while this stuff is going on? Like on NXT now, it's horrible where they'll have an entrance and then they'll go to a break. And when they come back from the break, they've got an interview going on in the back, apropos of nothing to do with the match that's supposed to be going on in the ring that we saw the guy going to and then we go back and then we get another. It's just all broken up. Anyway, Becky Lynch, live interview about all the business with Bianca Belair, and Becky Lynch is probably the best female promo in the business, right? Selena De La Renta is not actively on regular television. She definitely is. All the other girls sound like they're auditioning for reality TV shows, or they're doing some Dr. Phil thing, girl, Becky Lynch is emotional. She's got a great vocabulary. She has inflection. It rises and falls. It speeds up. She's, the accent is a plus because it's not so thick you can't understand it. But at the same time, I can see, especially as a heel, it adds. And then here comes Bianca Belair, who Becky Lynch has fucked around and stolen her belt and stabbed in the back and turned on, and she comes out skipping and smirking and smiling and twirling her 6-foot-long hair. And she's obviously not upset. So why am I as a viewer? And she immediately goes all, well, girl, don't put get my name out your mouth, like she's on one of these afternoon fucking argument shows. But she's smiling at the same time and acting like she's not trying to put it. A baby face, when they've been wronged, is supposed to come out and be pissed about it and tell the heel what they intend to do to get even without being. It was like she was being more heelish and annoying than the heel here. The way that she did took me out of what Becky Lynch had created, the vibe when she was alone speaking, and Bianca Belair bragged more than the heel did. So I think they switched the wrong one. By the time it was over with, I was like, I hope Becky Lynch fucking shuts her up. And then Becky slams. Becky slaps Bianca. Bianca jumps on Becky, gives her finish, and left her laying. So right ahead of the pay-per-view, the babyface leaves the heel laying. There's a ton of heat on that. I can't wait to see her leave her laying again. What? What'd you think?
I obviously like Bianca a little better than you, but I agree, like Pillman Jr., why wasn't she fired up here? Why isn't she more upset instead of just wanting to trade insults back and forth? That's what the heel should want to do, not what anyone else should want to do. Becky Lynch is really good. She should talk to her husband about how to do a promo, quite frankly. She's really fucking good. And there are very few that are really good. I mean, Britt Baker, Thunder Rosa, Charlotte's good. Rhea Ripley, I can't really say because she's given so much scripted shit that it's hard to know.
Yeah.
I mean, even though Becky's given scripted shit, she's on another level with it. But that's really it. You know,
and I should mention also Britt Baker and Becky Lynch are standing atop of the female promo mountain. Anyway, so then apparently what passes for an Intercontinental title match these days was old Shaky Nakamura with Booger in his corner against Apollo Crews with Commander Sneeze. And then Montez Ford did a promo that went quite a while, basically calling the Usos bloodline bitches, which then we go to Reigns and Heyman reacting to that, and Roman Reigns tells Paul Heyman, get me a match with Montez Ford tonight. And I'm, oh God, what?
You know what? Can I just say, Reigns and Heyman were really great here. The only problem is, camera's right in front of them.
Yes.
Right in front of them. They're sitting down, lounging in the room, and just doing this right in front of the camera.
I'm surprised somebody doesn't go, and scene. I mean, they're performing well, but the camera is right in front of them, and they're acting like... And also, here's the thing. Good God, it's network television. They didn't have anything else planned? Because when basically Paul says he'll make it happen and he goes to Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville, and what about Roman Reigns and Montez Ford? Hey, we love it. Okay, we didn't have anything else planned for an hour and a half from now. There's no...
Do they just walk around together backstage the whole show?
Apparently they're handcuffed. Pearce and Deville.
The Weird Eurythmics. As they are now called.
They go together better than Brewer and Shipley. And by the way, Sonya Deville has got to at some point play Cruella Deville in the movies. Because I mean that has to be the source of the name, right?
I never thought about that. I don't know. It
can't be a coincidence. She looks like Cruella Deville. Anyway, so they've signed that match for the main event on SmackDown. Well, then Seth Stalin was backstage and did a long promo about he wants Edge to come back next week and admit that he's superior. And I wrote, here's what I wrote. God, they're writing all this trying to make him a dramatic actor, and De Niro couldn't have made this work. You see the difference in when he's talking here and when he's a guy on a fucking show talking to Steve Austin as himself. Imagine that guy being a fucking kind of, as you mentioned, a little arrogant fucking heel and saying what he wants to say. Imagine, but anyway, we have to imagine that because we can't see it. Liv Morgan wrestled Zelina Vega with Carmella at ringside on Color. And I wrote, is Laurinaitis looking through lingerie catalogs for talent again? They showed footage of Happy Corbin suit shopping in Las Vegas. And then the debut of Happy Corbin's Happy Talk show. Brian, they haven't had a new idea in 35 years, and people say I'm out of touch. Vince is still trying to recreate Piper's Pit. A talk show. Why would this guy, under what set of logic and circumstances would the WWE, if this was in any way a shoot, give Happy Corbin a talk show? And this was at the top of the 9 o'clock hour. I wonder if Fox has been alerted to ratings malfeasance.
Did you see what it said on the screen when he came out? It said, I wrote this down, height 6'8", weight 285 pounds, overcame his destitution by winning a large sum of money in Las Vegas at SummerSlam, earned even more money by investing his gambling earnings. I don't know why that cracked me up so much, seeing overcame his destitution.
And he's earned all that. But what's the market? He's only won that money 4 weeks ago. The market's been down for the last month.
Well, it depends what you put it in, to be honest.
Well, it's not like he fucking just suddenly got fucking Bezos amount of money and overcame his destitution. As Ali said, if you don't work on your endurance, you're going to need more insurance. I say, if you want to overcome your destitution, turn to prostitution. But anyway, so at the top of the 9 o'clock hour on the Fox network on Friday night, people tuned in and saw Baron von Raschke's delinquent grandson introduce himself as his own guest on his new talk show, and he was talking about the truffles and the stuffed ravioli that he had on his private jet. I know they're not doing a wrestling show. It's sports entertainment. This doesn't have anything to do with wrestling, sports, or entertainment. And then I'm going to open the floor up to you on this one. Here comes Kevin Steen, the artist soon to be formerly known as Kevin Owens. He comes out and he's about to hit the ring and beat shit out of Happy Corbin and turn his smile down to a frown or whatever the fuck. When somebody in a black suit jumps Steen and beats him up, and the guy was not wearing a mask, I just didn't know who the fuck he was. And they double choke slam Steen on the metal stairs. Who was the other guy? Did anybody... It sounded like one of the announcers accidentally almost said, well, that's... And then they got told to shut up. What did you see here?
I saw a man in a black hoodie. I thought it was the Elite Hunter, Frankie Kazarian, to be honest with you.
Well, nobody in this segment was elite by any stretch of the imagination.
I heard what you heard, where it sounded like they were either about to say a name or maybe they even said the name, but I couldn't even make out what they were saying. I have no idea who this man was. If Happy Corbin is happy, this man was outright delirious.
Well, they say ignorance is bliss. Then I'm so upset. Apparently, Rhea Ripley and Nikki Ass are now the tag team champions. And they came out and it looked like a dominatrix taking her kid sister out trick-or-treating. And can we start it now, Rhea Ripley to AEW? Because Jesus Christ, what? And then she wasn't even the one wrestling. It was Nikki Ass wrestling Natalya. So I skipped through that. And then they did a live interview with Naomi, who glows green in her entrance in the dark. And she argued with now Sonya Deville, who may change her name soon to Cruella Deville, because she's now apparently a heel. Even though she's been the babyface authority figure and working hand in hand with Adam Pearce, now she don't like Naomi, and she just healed all over Naomi verbally. And Naomi wants a match with Sonya, and Sonya cut Naomi's microphone off and had security kick her the fuck out of the building. So Sonya is now a heel. We're finding out. She's been straight so far, hadn't she?
I think she used to be a heel when she wrestled, right?
But I mean, as an authority figure.
As an authority figure, she's been, from what we've seen, it seems like on the straight and narrow. But perhaps she just doesn't like green and glow-in-the-dark stuff. She really seemed to have a problem with Naomi for no reason.
Yeah, I know it. Just all of a sudden, well, fuck you, you bitch. I don't know.
It's the first promo I've ever seen from Naomi, and all of a sudden this is what happens. Yeah.
I know we missed Smackdown, what was a week before last or whatever, but I can't believe that these things turn on a dime these days. Anyway, and then the main event came up. Roman Reigns versus Montez Ford. And Roman Reigns, of course, had Paul Heyman in the corner. And I looked, and they had 23 minutes left in this program. And I said, certainly to God, they're not going to have Montez Ford go 20 minutes with Roman Reigns, the champion, the guy that's about to fight the demon, the guy that's about to fight Brock Lesnar. And I'm going to zip ahead and see if there's something else that, is going to come after this or whatever. But as I start to zip, they went to a break on their own after like 1 minute of action.
They went to a break in the middle of the walk to the ring, and then once they got to the ring, they went to another break.
Yeah, it's just so then they come back after 3 minutes, and Reigns gets a little heat on old Montez Ford, and Ford fires up and makes a comeback, and Reigns goes out. God damn it. Reigns goes outside, takes a powder to, take a walk on the babyface for a minute and regather his bearings. And Montez Ford goes out and is going to do a spot where he was going to jump up and run down the announcer's desk and jump off on Reigns, who was at the other end of it. And apparently, this was something that old Montez Ford decided he was going to go into business for himself on because he's in the big main event against the champion. And apparently, nobody told Montez Ford, don't get up on that announce desk there, son, because we pulled the pins on it. And he took one step up on the announce desk and it just came apart flatter than 4 o'clock right in the floor and scattered the announcers and everything. Folks, at this point, for God's sake, I don't think this will be the most startling revelation anybody gives you this week. The announce desk since the late 90s, and I believe it was the Magic Man himself, Richie Posner. I don't know if Richie's still with the company or not, but he was the special effects guy, the gimmick man. He could make a rubber machine gun. Anything you needed done, there was sort of something needed to be fixed, or it was a little bit of an allusion to the thing. You went to Richie Posner. And they figured out a way that they put those desks together where they can pull pins and they will come apart and flatten. So that's why earlier in the show, Pat McAfee was standing up on the table, on the desk, and it didn't go anywhere because it was put together. And then in some break before this match came up, for reasons that we will talk about here in a second in the finish, they pulled the pins, but nobody told Montez. So he took, goddamn, down he goes, and down the desk goes. And I wrote, he fucked up some kind of spot, and they went to break again. And then that's when they came back from that, that's the third or fourth segment. I said, they are going to let this guy go 20 minutes with Roman Reigns. So I fast forwarded to the finish because everybody knows what's going to happen eventually with this. And I'm sorry, Montez Ford is not next week going to be a major singles attraction. And Reigns front face locked him and tapped him out. And the best part about that was in the background, there was a sign that said, I'm a Paul Heyman guy. And I'm not sure whether that was a mistake or not. It's only one letter, But anyway, so Paulie tells Reigns to make an example of Montez Ford and says with the dramatic and the gravel in his voice, and take it to the extreme, because they're in Philadelphia. But it didn't get a pop. Did you hear? Maybe a small smattering, but the ECW audience is not watching this shit anymore. Are they?
They're certainly not attending these shows in Philadelphia. There was no pop at all for Paul doing it. It was like he did it in any arena, anywhere, not in Philadelphia.
Yeah, so that was their nod to the local, but that's 25 years or 20 years or whatever. Anyway, so here come the Usos to the ring, and Reigns wears Montez Ford out with a chair. I don't know why they have to just beat the dead horse. We're going to talk about that in a minute with another match. But so meanwhile, the Usos, if you watch this back, viewers, listeners, Cult of Cornette, the people out there, if you've got it DVR'd, you watch it back. The Usos come out, and what they were supposed to do, obviously, was put this fucking guy through the announce desk. But instead, you see either Reigns and Heyman say something to the Usos, and the Usos go under the apron skirt, and one Uso stands up and does like shit, like they ain't no table there, dog. But the other one's, no, come here, and they pull another table out, and they set the table up and chokeslam Ford through the table to make up for the announce desk that he collapsed. And then the lights go out. And suddenly when they come back on, the Demon is on the top rope and the heels are on the floor, and he cross-bodied all three heels off the top onto the floor, and then gets a kendo stick and wears them out, and then took a chair to everybody, including Reigns, and, and just wore them out. I know they've got a big event. You can't even say pay-per-view anymore. Few people do, but they had a big show that weekend. But good God, I believe I would have saved the babyface kicking the teetotal shit out of Roman Reigns and both the Usos for Brock Lesnar, at least on free television. But that's just me. But it's like there's no, as we'll talk about in a minute with the Demons match on pay-per-view with Reigns, there's no restraint anymore with they just want car wrecks and car crashes, and it doesn't matter how strong or weak some guy looks when there's a big match coming up, because they just think that everybody just forgets about that, which they probably do, because all of this is just people crashing through shit and breaking furniture over themselves. What do you think?
I'm not big on this whole Roman Reigns Demon thing to begin with, since it started a few weeks ago. I like everything with Reigns, and I like the Usos more as backing Reigns up than their actual matches, I think, sometimes.
Yes, yeah, matches leave a bit to be desired.
But, obviously things fell apart, like you pointed out here at the end of the show. The table thing was pretty hysterical.
Well, and, they used to. And, of course, that's happened sometimes in the past when somebody wasn't clued in on something. It led to a funny spot or something getting screwed up or whatever. Remember the story they told when Bischoff, they were going to do on a WCW show in the late 90s, somebody was going to go through a spot in the ramp. And they told everybody, stay away from that spot in the ramp. And Kurt Hennig, as a rib, acted like he was going to either powerbomb somebody or get powerbombed or slammed on that spot just to give Bischoff a heart attack in the back. We were doing a Smoky Mountain taping one night, and this was when Kevin Sullivan was sending in his band of oddities and misfits to try to, get Brian Lee, right, in anticipation of Kevin's big arrival. Nobody knew who was behind this at this point. And for the next fucking match involving Brian Lee, we had the Mongolian Mauler, not the Mongolian Stomper, but the Mongolian Mauler,
Peter
R. Miller, he looked like a white Abdullah the Butcher, just bald head and huge and bulbous,
with the black things in his eyes,
with black contact lenses in his eyes. He had weird faces and loud noises and all that and so we had him hiding under the ring for the match with Brian Lee in segment 3 or whatever. But in segment 2 was the Stud Stable tag match, Robert Fuller and Jimmy Golden. And they're just waylaying and beating the shit out of these job guys. And Jimmy Golden went under the ring like he was going to try to find a chair and pull a chair out. And when he pulled the apron skirt up, he came face to face with the Mongolian Mauler and scared the shit out of him. He had no idea a human being was under the fucking ring. Oh, my God. So anyway, that's what happened. Well, should we talk about the main event of the Extreme Rules pay-per-view was the aforementioned Roman Reigns and the Demon. And you had asked me, you'd called me, yesterday or late the day before, you said, oh, shit. We forgot, are we going to watch Extreme Rules? I said, I didn't forget about it. I just assumed nobody gave a shit. And, actually, I don't think really a lot of people did give a shit until they saw what happened in the main event, and then they were polarized on that. But we watched the finish, because that's what everybody was talking about. The finish with Reigns and the Demon. And by the way, I've just, since we've talked about the angle with Reigns and Lesnar, they're going to do that in Saudi Arabia.
I saw that. What a waste.
That's not Survivor Series. That's not the Royal Rumble. That's not WrestleMania. That's Saudi Arabia. I'm gobsmacked at that. But anyway, nevertheless, so they've got this little complication of having to have Roman Reigns get by the Demon. They're already they're not even advertising Roman Reigns or the Demon versus Brock Lesnar. The winner of Roman Reigns and the Demon versus Brock Lesnar, because they know that would be insane. Because everybody wants to see Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns, so they're advertising it. So everybody knew, no way in hell that this, no demon pun there meant, but there's no way that the title's going to change hands, so he ain't going to win this. So to create some type of excitement in the match, they had to actually come up with some way where the people would think, even for a fleeting second, that the Demon was going to win this fucking thing, right? And as a result, all this does, in my opinion, is just take the steam off of any main event match that they come up with, Reigns and Lesnar, Reigns and whoever the fuck, right? Because we just talked about a few minutes ago, more of the same shit. It's just car wreck shit. There was a germ of creativity in this finish, but it had already been overdone and done to death. And just in the last 5 minutes of the thing, the Demon's looking good, but the Usos interfere. But it can't be a disqualification. Extreme rules, no disqualification. We haven't said it in a while, folks, so say it with me. Lazy booking. Because an Extreme, was all the matches at Extreme Rules, or just the ones that they couldn't figure out a way to get out of any other way than to make no disqualification?
I had a lot of it on in the background. I don't even know the answer to that. I'm not sure.
Well, because you can't really tell you can't tell a no disqualification match from a regular match anymore because they do the same shit. But the no disqualification matches generally come in when they can't figure out a goddamn finish any other way than to fucking take a shortcut. And nobody dresses for a street fight anymore. They all wear their same trunks, except for Kushida. He's been dressing for the street fight that never came for years. So anyway, Demon's looking good. Then the Usos interfere. The Usos pull him out on the floor and just beat the teetotal shit out of him in front of the referee. And the announcer's saying, of course, no DQ. The problem with that is, as we've mentioned, it's a subliminal thing. When the people are watching in the arena, the ones that are giving the reaction that kind of leads the people at home on TV, people at home on TV are more likely to just kind of roll their eyes and go, oh, this again. But the people in the arena that have paid money and kind of invested in this, they get more pissed off because they're like, oh, this fucking shit again. It's what, when I got in the business years ago, the veterans explained was disgusting heat. The people aren't hot or mad at the heels. They're mad, disgusted at the promotion or why this is allowed to go on. So they beat him up but then Demon comes back and beats the Usos up on the floor. And while all this is going on, Reigns has been recuperating in the ring from getting a nut shot when Demon kicked out and raised his shoulder and nutted Reigns, which was a cool little spot. There's all kinds of great stuff in here. It's just constantly being covered up. They're out on the floor. You've already seen another table has been broken already during this match. There's wreckage of table there everywhere. So now Demon comes back and fucking beats up the Usos and then turns around and Roman Reigns has recovered and hits Demon on the floor with a spear and they go through the barricade and the wooden barricade flies apart into pieces. And wait a minute, who got put through the second table? Because I thought one of the Usos got put through the second table there on the floor, and then Demon got speared through the barricade, and then but suddenly, as they're all laying there selling on the floor, everybody's down, the lights go out and the red Demon light comes on. I thought the red light was only for the Fiend, but it's for the Demon too. So, at a heartbeat sound effect begins playing in the arena. And every time the heartbeat goes boom, boom, the fucking demon laying there face down on the floor starts convulsing. And then after 4 or 5 of them, he pops up completely well. So now Finn Balor is of the supernatural. Remember before we said he didn't have supernatural powers. He just channeled it from within him. Now he's got supernatural powers. He's revitalized by a recording of a heartbeat. What were you going to say?
The red light. Remember, the red light was on that match with Seth Rollins and The Fiend that everyone hated. It was all Vince's idea, and all of a sudden the red light comes on, and this guy gets his powers.
There you go. Well, of course it is. Because the Underdog Super Energy Pill was out of stock at the local pharmacy. So then he gets up and fucking kicks the shit out of Roman Reigns again, and then he goes to the top rope and is going to do his finish on Roman Reigns for the second time in the match. He did it earlier, and the Usos pulled him out. And as he's standing up there, the top rope breaks, and he falls in, Demon does, hurts his knee, and finally staggers to his feet, and Roman Reigns spears him. Boom, 1, 2, 3. That was creative. And I've seen guys the rope actually break for real in numerous times over the last 40 years on guys when they were trying to either hitting the ropes or climbing or doing whatever. So it can happen. But after all this other gaga with the multiple splintered, broken tables and the barricade and the chaos completely in front of the referee, no DQ or not, it's just, there's no attempt at a plausible story being told. None of these people would react that way if this was a shoot. Nobody could withstand these. And I mean, when they just wear the fuck out of each other with the chair, 1 chair shot's not good enough. 2 chairs is not. Now they're literally beating the dead horse over and over. You can't. It's like if the Sheik threw fire 3 times in the same match. It's like if everybody on the card was Roughhouse Fargo. Nothing stands out or means anything anymore. What's Brock Lesnar going to do to Roman Reigns that didn't happen here? It's just going to come from a bigger, more powerful guy. But I don't know. What did you think of the whole and the rope break spot? I got no problem with if they'd have had a fucking just a regular match in front of it, and it gives the babyface a nice out. The rope broke and boom, he got hurt, and the other guy fucking speared him and pinned him. Boom. Was all that other stuff completely necessary, as well as the supernatural control voice from the Outer Limits, whatever the fuck?
Not that I approve of any of that, but you would think if they have the red lights and he's convulsing like his puppet master is pulling the strings, you would think he would go over. Because now what does it say about the future when the lights go red? Oh, the guy can't even win when he has these supernatural powers.
Yeah. Well, he was dead just 30 seconds beforehand, so maybe it hadn't all kicked in yet.
That rope spot looked dangerous as fuck to me. I tried to watch as best I could because of the lighting, how he fell straight down, and that could have gone wrong a million different ways.
Well, actually, I don't want to diminish what he did, but it was pretty safe. Because, I mean, I don't want to diminish anything that the poor guys have to go through in these matches, because now we know they're just being told to do these stupid things. But the best part was the way that it was rigged, where there was obviously a release mechanism somewhere where boom, it would just, instead of, when they snap by accident, they don't just completely go out from under you. There's the breaking and then the, oh shit, and there's a little bit dodgy. But if you go back and notice, he was standing with both feet on either side of the top turnbuckle, and when that thing released, both of his legs would go astraddle of the turnbuckle that was holding the second rope, and he was leaning slightly inward. He wasn't going to go backwards, and I'm sure he took extra time while he was up there than he normally does for the foot stomp, so I'm sure he was getting his balance and then giving a signal. But when the rope went out from under him, not that there wasn't shit that couldn't go wrong if he was standing wrong or balanced wrong or whatever, but he got his balance. I'm sure he gave a signal, and his feet came down straddling the turnbuckle so he wouldn't have gone outside the ring, and he went forward into the ring because that's the way he was leaning. The biggest thing I would have worried about was either nutting myself on that second turnbuckle or potentially landing wrong and blowing a knee or an ankle or something when your feet land on the mat. But he wasn't going to go back into the crowd or anything.
All right, and that was the main event, the Demon versus Roman Reigns, which perfectly sets up Roman Reigns for that dangerous flight to Saudi Arabia. And who knows if he'll be able to escape that crazy country, or he'll be held on the runway for hours, which the company will later deny, and then there'll be a lawsuit, which will be settled with the company clearly not wanting the real story to get out there. But who knows what'll happen? Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar.
But we know who to call for that lawsuit, don't we?
We do. The man whose spot we were going to transition to later on in the show.
So we'll keep it there, but we know, everybody knows who to call if you need a lawsuit.
Did you see anything else from Extreme Rules?
I did not. You went crazy. I saw the slap spot. You went crazy. You said, oh, you got to see this. Bianca just slaps a teetotal shit out of Sasha.
No. Sasha slaps Bianca.
Or Sasha slaps Bianca. And so, all right, send me that. I thought it was some tooth-rattling, jaw-breaking, mark-leaving, horrible slap. It was a slap. It was a working slap and made a nice sound. Her face was completely unmarked.
I thought it was done so well because the pop was one of those pops you don't hear too often. It was, oh!
Yeah, well, that's because it made a noise, and also because she sold it so well, and there was a lot of follow-through. It was a nice slap, but it wasn't anything going to give anybody any brain damage. But here's the thing, Becky Lynch, Sasha Banks, Bianca Belair, who's on whose side? They're all just fighting each other. And each one of them thought they were friends just weeks ago. Are they just all Vince just said, well, fuck it, just make all the girls mad at each other?
Well, here's the other thing. Earlier this year, you and I were talking about the idea that Bianca and Rhea were both on the main roster, both getting pushed to the top. It seemed like the company was really getting behind both of them. And since that time, Rhea Ripley is now just another girl on the roster and in a tag team with Nikki Ash. And Bianca, yeah, they gave her the belt and they've kicked the shit out of her nonstop since then. What does that say about how Vince is treating I guess we never think about the women. We always talk about the men from NXT getting treated like shit. Look at the women here.
Vince may be scared of Rhea Ripley because he likes the white cotton panty Sable type. As we've gone over many times in the past when he and Shitstain would sit there and out loud talk about, can you imagine Sable wearing white cotton panties? No, I'd rather look at Rhea Ripley wearing crotchless leather. Fuck, I hated those goddamn, the simple fantasies were the ones that I'm like, why are you even wasting your time with this fucking vanilla shit? But anyway, that's exactly, no, he knows no bounds, male or female. He's going to bury everybody's gimmick until they're approximating what he wants them to look like. I caught just a piece of Karrion Kross on Raw. Because actually, I was in front of a television show when Raw was going on. I said, let me just see what pops up. And it was another interview in the back where he's obviously memorized this shit somebody's told him to say. And then it transitions to his entrance and he's coming out in that ill-fitting helmet with the, demolition light, S&M bondage gear and no scarlet. And oh man, what would have been the problem with just having this guy in his hot blonde, and instead of the fucking dramatic verbiage they're writing for him about how he's getting in everybody's head or whatever the fuck, if he could just say, hey, it's simple as this. I'm 6 feet whatever, and I'm 200 and whatever pounds, and I'm a badass. And you know why she's with me? Because every time I win, I love it. And I take her back to the room, and we go for 12 hours in the best hotel suite in town that I've paid for. On every surface, on the walls, on the furniture. And you better believe that she can drain a normal man dry in the course of an instant, but we sometimes...
I don't know if that would work.
We time it with a calendar, folks. And then everybody's sitting there, that big, bald motherfucker is just fucking her to death, and she's fucking him to death. But he says, but when I don't win, I'm mad and she's mad, and she makes me sleep on the fucking pull-out fucking couch sofa bed in that suite, and none of us fucking has any fun. That's why I like to win at any cost. And there you go. And let him just do promos. Or he can wear that outfit and not
I'm
get
not
laid
sure.
at all.
I'm not sure if we've seen any of those angles yet of I'm going to do good because I love the fuck.
Yeah, that's the thing. No, that's the thing. Karrion Kross and Scarlett are standing there, and it's understood that if he wins, that she's going to fuck him for 12 hours straight. But if he loses, then they're both pissed, and she's going to make him sleep on the fucking couch. And that's why he'll win at any cost, and he'll use any tactic to get the fucking victory. And there's their gimmick.
And then you can start using it for other feuds. Because as he keeps winning, other guys, because everyone on the roster has a wife or a girlfriend on the roster, other guys, like backstage, you go to the thing and they don't know the camera's there, and he's like, honey, come on, Karrion's fucking all the time, and look at how good he's doing. Just fuck me, please. I want to get the Intercontinental belt.
Yeah, but right now, the only person fucking anybody is Vince. That's a shame.
And he can't even remember the fucking minutes later. That's the shame. But what he can do is start the day with a healthy breakfast.
You know, that's true, because I have a feeling that Vince's cognitive function would be in much better shape now if he was getting up every morning, as we know he does, bright and early, and instead of going straight to work, if he was eating a healthy breakfast. And the folks at Magic Spoon, I'm sure, could fix him right up. Folks, you know that cereal is one of the best parts of the day. When you're a kid, you eat all the sugar and all the carbs and all the junk. But then you had to quit eating the sugar and the carbs and the junk when you became a grown-up adult and you put away the childish things. Well, now you can get childish all over again. You can sit down cross-legged in the floor of your kitchen with a bowl with Tony the Tiger on it, and you can pour some milk in there, and you can pour in the Magic Spoon cereal. 0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, and only 4 net grams of carbs in each serving, only 140 calories a serving. Keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, and low-carb. And right now, you can build your own box, a custom bundle featuring cocoa or fruity or frosted or peanut butter or blueberry or cinnamon or cookies and cream or maple waffle. And as we all know, the cookies and cream and maple waffle were temporary items before, but now they've been brought back permanently, and they're guiltless. They're guiltless. They're delicious and indulgent, but guiltless, especially for a midnight snack, or you can just walk around the house eating this stuff like trail mix. You don't even need the milk. Folks, right now, if you go to magicspoon.com/Jim and you grab a custom bundle and try it today, use the promo code Jim at checkout to save $5 off your order. And they're so confident in the goodness and the yumminess and the fantasticality of their product that it is backed with a 100% happiness guarantee. If you don't like it for any reason and you can find them, they'll refund your money, no questions. And no, they're easy to find. Everybody knows where they are. You've had their number as soon as they walked in the door, folks. You can find them all over the place, and they'll give you your money back if you don't like this cereal. I don't know why they do that, because if you don't like this stuff, there's something wrong with your ass. And I don't know why they should pay you for being a prick. No good pieces of shit out there not liking Magic Spoon. I ought to grab you by the throat right now and just squeeze your britches full if you don't like Magic Spoon. But anyway, if you do and you want to order some more, go to magicspoon.com/Jim. Use the code Jim at checkout to save $5. And we all know what you can do with $5.
The hard way.
I tell you, that's $13.
Well, Jim, speaking of $13, I'm not sure if that would get you in the door at Arthur Ashe Stadium for AEW Grand Slam. What it turns out was an endless night of wrestling action. We both really loved AEW Dynamite this week. What did you think of Rampage, which I think was taped right after AEW Dynamite?
Boy, howdy, and it showed. They may have charged $13 to get out that night. For the people go, it's almost fucking midnight. Can we leave? No, not unless you pay $13. Dynamite was top to bottom, as we mentioned, the most professional television program that they've done yet. Anything offensive or goofy was kept to an absolute minimum. They had the stars out. The crowd was there. Boom, boom, boom. I know they've got to take advantage of that big crowd, and I know they can't just tape constantly, but 2 hours of Rampage and 2 hours of Dynamite, even in front of 20,000 people. Again, when you're thinking about the live experience, they told those people, take public transportation and come early because it's going to be a mess. And you know, you enlightened me. I've never been there, but the complex that they're in, you can't just fucking park at the door of the Arthur Ashe Tennis Stadium and walk right in. They made a commitment to go to that place, to be dropped off by public transportation or park way hell and gone from the building and walk in, blah, blah, blah. Maybe some of them have been in there since 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Now it's after Dynamite was 10 o'clock, and you've got to think they didn't tape. Maybe they taped some of this beforehand, but it didn't really look like it because the people were fucking wore out. They were dead. Not dead. They still reacted to things, but it wasn't the atmosphere that they had on the Wednesday night show because it was 2 more hours of wrestling after 10 o'clock at night on a long day to begin with. So the atmosphere wasn't there, and they didn't particularly give them past the first hour, which I understand. Have you seen the ratings?
I saw the overall ratings the other day, but I didn't see any of the breakdowns.
The first hour was 700 and something thousand people, and the second hour was 500 and something thousand people. Because once they saw Punk, and they're fighting sleep, and they're fighting disinterest because this was another AEW show where they couldn't get out of their own way.
I'll just say one thing because you brought up a good point. And again, it was Friday night pretty late. And if they did 700 for the first hour, that's approximately what they usually do for their only hour. But I twice attempting to watch it live and then watching it actually yesterday night, I fell asleep during the show.
Well,
and again, I'm 41 and I wake up at 6 a.m. and I do a lot all day. But I'm the audience for it in some sense. It was too much for me.
What is the big demo that everybody talks about? 18 to 49, right?
That's right.
You're in there.
Somewhere.
In there somewhere. Anyway, they had the big building and the big crowd again for Rampage on September 24th. But we started out with good old Excrement's voice, and he is trying so hard now that he's a lead announcer, he's going to give himself hemorrhoids. I'm just telling you. He needs to start sitting on one of them donut pillows already because he's trying. They did a VTR of the Hobbs Punk angle, which was a good reminder of everything from the previous week. And then we had right at the top of the program, like Mussolini and Annie Oakley. I don't know who. But that was the match that was pretty much the draw. And so they put it on early where at least people wouldn't go to sleep, but then, you had to try to keep them. So again, does anybody notice the difference when Punk comes out for a live interview? He's smiling, he's happy, he's diving into the crowd, he's running around the ring slapping hands. When he comes out for a match, he's got the game face on, he's serious. He checks the watch and it's clobbering time, and the people are with it. It's a totally different attitude from, the entrance for his promos, and because it should be, because he's going into a fight, quote unquote. And in this one, he didn't have Darby Allin that could do all the flashy shit and et cetera, and could be, even though Punk's not working as a heel, Darby was still an underneath babyface that could fight from underneath and then have the flurries. Hobbs is a big guy, needed a different kind of match. They had a different kind of match. And also Hobbs, honestly, is, especially at singles matches and this long, Hobbs is a lot greener than Darby, but he's got a ton more upside than Darby because of his size and his look. He could be in a Roman Reigns spot, WrestleMania main eventer one of these days. Whereas that's not going to be Darby's fate regardless of what happens. But anyway, so Punk opens quick. He drop kicks him. Boom, he's going for the leg kicks. He's aggressive. He's trying to put over Hobbs' strength, but he's working the legs, try to take the big man's mobility away. They do a little distraction with hook, which is enough for Hobbs to stop Punk. And if you notice, going back on this, again, Hobbs is green, so he's herky-jerky early when Punk was trying to position him to do things, but once he's on offense, it's easier to sell for a guy like that, and kind of when even the guy calling the match is dictating the pace, I assume that was Punk, but it's easier when the green guy is in charge because he can do things that's comfortable to him, and you can slow him down or speed him up a little bit if you want to, and he listens. There was a time or two in there that I think Punk got hit with something a little different than what he was expecting. Especially one time when Hobbs just came off the ropes, it looked like he hit him with a fucking Vader fucking thing. I don't think Punk was expecting that, but at least from the bump that Punk took, he wasn't quite expecting that. But anyway, went through a break. He got the heat on him. Punk was selling his ass off. Finally, he fights up. He makes a comeback, hit the elbow drop off the top, I don't know whether he was working like, hey, folks, let's see if I can still do this, or whether he was happy he could still do it after, at that point in the match after 7 years. But Punk goes for the go to sleep, the GTS. Hobbs turned it into the spine buster, and that looked slick. Got a nice little 2 count. I don't know that anybody particularly thought Hobbs was going to win this, but it probably would have helped to have been on a couple hours earlier in the evening as to the reactions on a couple of the false finishes. And the other thing that I was like, what the fuck happened here, was Punk goes for the Hurricane Rana off the top rope, but Hobbs caught him, and Punk's hanging upside down, and then Punk sits up and goes for it anyway. And I guess, would Hobbs have ever been Hurricane Rana'd off the top rope before? Because he didn't know how to take the bump. He just dove head first. He didn't flip. And he kind of landed more or less on Punk, and I think Punk got a little cut on his face or in his mouth or whatever. Hobbs did the modified Gotch lift, at least, into a one-armed power bomb, which looked fantastic. And then boom, 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 Punk's comes back up. He's going with the forearms, the kick. Hook comes up. Hobbs charges, Punk moves. Oldest finish in the world, and it always works. Hobbs hit hook, Punk hit the GTS, 1, 2, 3. Except for that Hurricane Rana spot that I'm not sure what was going on there. That's, would you think, the best singles match that Hobbs has had to date on television. I mean, we don't watch the YouTube stuff, but can you imagine that he would have ever done anything like this on YouTube?
I think it was the best match we've seen on TV with Hobbs, but I also think it actually went too long. And I think between Punk just coming back, and I think there is some ring rust, and I wouldn't have him, especially the level of star he is, go too long.
Yeah.
And the fact that the crowd was burned out. If they weren't burned out, because there are other points in the show, they still want to sing Jericho's song and they still want to react to some of the near falls. But by and large, the crowd was remarkably different here than it was a few hours earlier. I would have maybe called an audible and said, or maybe not an audible, but called it in the back and said, maybe we shouldn't go so long.
Well, but then one of these other matches had to go longer, and I wouldn't recommend that to anybody.
Hobbs looks great. The Hobbs has so much. His facial reactions, the basic big moves look great, like the belly block, I guess you would call it, where you just runs into Punk.
That's what I don't think Punk was thinking exactly what was coming at him, because he was trying to lean back and take a bump for a clothesline, it looked like, but he took the bump. I don't know whether he intended to take all of it or not, but yeah, but at the same time, yes, it was a little long, and should he have been, should he have gone that long with Punk? With Punk, it's his first television match, but that's another thing that Punk's trying to do is elevate a lot of these guys. So you got to give them their opportunity. I didn't have anything against that because, again, there was no ridiculousness. They didn't bury the referee. There wasn't any obvious cooperation or tomfoolery going on. There wasn't a afterbirth or ridiculously overbooked finish. The heels run into each other. You could have seen that in any era. So it was downhill from here for me, dog. Or would that be uphill? It was down. If Travis is getting better going downhill, this show was going downhill, but he wasn't getting better. He's going uphill. Well, the show's going uphill too. Up a long, hard, rock-strewn hill with hot sun. The next match was Christian Cage, Jungle Boy, and Dino Douche against the Hardy Boys and Adam Cole. And I thought, okay, I'm going to, fucking watch this because it's Adam Cole. Did you notice apparently Pieface of the Hardy Boys was his gear lost by the airline because he was just wrestling in Zubaz? Or is that another of his changing gear designs?
I really don't know.
So I'm starting to watch this, and Jungle Boy and the Hardy Boys did some gymnastics, but Adam Cole was running from everybody. He would get in and then tag out, or he would get away from any contact. I'm like, when did he become a coward? Why is he afraid of the middle card guys across the ring from him when he's just come in as a fucking star? And they did some more gymnastics. And finally, Cole tags in, and he gets the camel clutch on Jungle Boy. And the Hardy Boys jump in the ring, and they hit the ropes back and forth about 4 or 5 trips across the ring like they're gearing up to do something. And then they stop and lean over and kiss each one of Adam Cole's cheeks while he has the camel clutch on Jungle Boy. And that's when I decided that I will wait until Adam Cole has a single match, because it's not worth having to suffer the presence of the other two to fucking get to see Adam Cole. I didn't watch any more of this. I don't give a fuck. Once that they're kissing each other in the middle of moves, I'm afraid that I won't like Adam Cole anymore if I keep watching this type of thing. What did I miss?
I don't know. I really wasn't into it. I'm not into the Young Bucks style of matches. I'm just not. I really didn't care about this match. By and large, I haven't cared about Christian's run. I'm tired of the Jurassic Express. And I'm not really caring about what they're doing with Cole so far. So I really didn't give a shit, and I fast-forwarded.
Okay. Well, the next match brings up an interesting situation that I read about off the television program. But it was Chris Jericho and Sammy Hagar, the shoot fighter, against Scorpio Sky and the other Page with Dan Lambert, the head of American Top Team. And this was a tag team match. That's about all I can say about it. Scorpio Sky is very good.
And very bland.
But he's very good technically, and he's exciting. He's a good athlete. We all know what I think about the other Page, his green screen chaos, his match with himself. But they actually, at one point, they got heat on Jake Hager so Jericho could get a comeback. And I noticed at this point, especially, Jericho is beginning to physically resemble Kangaroo Al Costello in his declining years. Oof. And if anybody wants to look up a picture of Al Costello from 1978, you'll know what I mean.
And instead of throwing out boomerangs, he's throwing out bad lyrics.
And, of course, Hager made the tag to Jericho, and it was not only set up wrong, and Jericho actually, Hager tagged Jericho before the heels tagged, but it got absolutely no reaction whatsoever from the crowd because once they sang the song, they're still tired, and this match didn't get them. They went into a four-way, and they were doing false finishes, and Dan Lambert, who does the manager spot, trips Jake Hager, and he stumbled, quote-unquote, into the small package by Scorpio Sky. They either didn't walk through that or they've never done the spot before, but Sky should have been closer to the ropes that Hager was coming off of because when Hager gets tripped and he supposedly stumbles, he has to take 3 more steps to bend over and go into Scorpio Sky's small package. If he was closer to the ropes, he would have just tripped and gone forward into it. But anyway, but then Lambert turns around and mugs for the people, and which is a classic manager spot so that the baby faces can come from behind and grab him and pull him in, but he had to stay back, his back turned 45 seconds because the faces had to shit can the heels first and then bring him into the ring. Then they're holding Dan Lambert, who, by the way, they blew all the heat off of his second week in when Archer gave him his finish in the middle of the ring. But now he's interfered, so now they've got him, and Hager's holding him, and Jericho's going to just do whatever. And then all of a sudden, the American top team members, the shooters, Junior Dos Santos and Andrei Arlovsky, and, oh God, the guy, Masvidal, I can't pronounce his name, Paige Van Zandt, who looked like she was doing a Macy's Day Parade. Every time she saw a camera, she'd wave at it. They all start walking into the arena and walking to the ring. And conveniently, there's cameras out in the crowd to get these people walking to the ring that we had no idea were going to come and walk to the ring. And even though they were all 50 feet away from the ring, Jericho and Hager just stopped and just let go of Dan Lambert and just stopped whatever they were doing. They could have actually probably performed a very short fucking surgery on him by the time that those guys got into the ring, but they stopped. And the ATT guys get in, and there's an awkward fight because the shooters don't know how to work, and most of these workers don't know how to shoot. And Paige Van Zandt was acting like Vanna White in the background doing awkward gestures to look what's happening, and now here's a brand new car. I don't know. And they got some bad looking heat, and then they had Paige throw fake gut shots at Jericho that you could tell didn't connect, but then old Jorge Masvidal or whatever gave Jericho a decent looking knee lift. Omega ought to try to do these. By the way, I've got to bring this up. Do you know, when we talked on a show or two ago, I said, what is this fucking V-trigger thing? And why does Olivier think that it looks good? And why does he do 16 of them in every match? And it's just ridiculous. And the Hardley boys have the thing that they call the BTE trigger for being the elite. Do you know where he got it? Where old Twinkle Toes got the V-trigger, Brian? Several people have just told me this.
Yeah, I just saw this as well.
From a video game. It's a move in his favorite video game. This is an almost 40-year-old man that's supposed to be a professional wrestler, and he's doing moves from video games. You know, in the UFC, the video games do the moves that the fighters do in the octagon. In wrestling, the wrestlers do the moves that the video game fighters do. Fucking morons. Anyway, so they gave Jericho a good-looking one of those knee lifts, and boom, there he went. And I got a little quote from Dan Lambert. This was in, it was on Cage Side Seats that Lambert did this interview, but it was reprinted in Uncle Dave's opinion letter. Do you know what Dan Lambert said to Cage Side Seats, Brian, last?
I don't know what you're talking about, no.
He said, I'd like to hope it'll be back to the Monday Night Wars where everyone keeps stepping their product up to outdo the competition. Call me biased because I'm with AEW right now, but I don't see WWE stepping their game up. Bobby Lashley's a real dear friend of mine. I love the guy. I've known him for 15 plus years, and I'm now even at the point where I'm fast forwarding through Monday Night Raw to get to his shtick. I don't even hit play. I'm not a big fan of WWE's product these days. I still think they have some really good talents over there, but I just have a hard time watching it. The wrestling boom. And see, by the way, right now, besides the fact he's saying I'm with AEW right now, everything he's just said fits his gimmick on television, right? And it's also true, and people know it to be true. Here's what else he said next. The wrestling boom, in my mind, is what AEW is doing and watching their product and watching their show. Even though there are certain things in it that I don't like, some of the things I say in my character, I actually believe. But there are so many other things they have. Talk about having a buffet of different genres of professional wrestling. You go to one show at AEW and see every style you like and a couple of other styles you don't like. WWE is more the same for me. I see WWE as being somewhat egotistical in their approach, that they are who they are and what they are. They don't have to change anything or do anything differently, and people are still going to watch. I think it's had a little bit of the opposite effect because I think a lot of people support AEW just because they want to stick their finger in the eye of a WWE that's run roughshod for all of these years. He manages to tell the truth, give great quotes, and kill his own gimmick all in the same interview. What would have been wrong with saying all those things about WWE that people know to be true, and then instead of saying, in my mind, the wrestling boom is what AEW is doing. Even though there are certain things in it I don't like, some of the things I say in my character I actually believe. You would believe that he means everything he says because a lot of people are saying the same shit, and a lot of it's true. But he's just come out here and said, I'm with AEW. They're paying me to play a part on their television show. I believe some of this shit, but not all of it. So I'm as fake as everybody else. And let's face it, they wanted to get our audience that thinks these same things. They couldn't get me, so they want Dan to do it. Great. Then that's fine. And then he turns around and publicly says, but I don't really believe all this. That's why it worked, because people thought that he believed it. Or they could think that he believes it because so many people think that. But once you tell them you don't believe it, what the fuck? And you can't replicate something like that once that you've told them and stooged on it, because now they'll know that, well, this is just another part of the show. So I don't know what the fuck he was thinking, but that's what he just said. Here, the problem is, do you think that they want him to say that because they don't want people to think that a lot of people think this way? Just me? They just want it to be me. Cornette doesn't like anything. No. All the people that ain't watching this show, these are the reasons why they ain't watching it. But Lambert, he's supposed to be smarter than that. Anyway, so what was next? Oh, an 8-man tag. Imagine that. The Butcher and the Baker and Private Party against Santana and Ortiz and the Lucha Brothers. And if that wasn't enough at probably going on 11 o'clock at night to piss the people off, the match started with a jump start. They went into an 8-way. They did some phony choreography. All 4 heels bailed out to the floor in just the right place for all 4 baby faces to dive on top of all the heels. That was the first 30 seconds of the match. And that was enough for me. I fast forwarded. Did I miss anything?
No.
Good. Matt Hardy did a promo with Jack Evans and Tony Schiavone about pockets. I know it's late at night, but this is still national television. And now Matt Hardy came in here less than 2 years ago as a main event star, and now he's managing Jack Evans and doing promos about the company mascot. So maybe the brain damage that he suffered at their hands has limited him to this spot. Why was Miro why did he just come out and just attack Sammy Guevara and Fago del Solo, who were sitting there doing something with their note cards? He just came out, beat him up, threw Fago off the stage. And by the way, since now Mark Henry's not an announcer, the announcers were Excalibur, Ricky Starks, and
Taz.
And Taz and Starks were both taken up for the heels and laughing about everything they did. So it sounded, if you didn't know the voices because everybody's just laughing and loving it, it sounds like all the announcers are just enjoying the heel beating the fuck out of all the baby faces. And this took forever and nobody came out and tried to stop it. It was everything again that is wrong with standard sports entertainment bullshit. Nobody thinks any details through. Andre Oleo did another promo with subtitles on it. This is national television, folks. They followed that up with Penelope Ford against Anna Jay. And there was a jump start on the ramp and fake awkward looking shit in the ring and fighting on the floor within the first 30 seconds. And I was going to watch this to make fun of it because how they all look like fucking baby deer on an ice-covered lake, but it wasn't worth taking the time because I had other things to do that were important, such as pick my nose. But I skipped to the finish. They're still using brass knuckles, but they botched the finish because one of the corner girls tried to pitch the brass knuckles to Penelope, but old fucking whoosy Anna Jay kind of closed in before the girl had pitched the brass knucks to Penelope, so she had to stop because she saw she didn't have them and stagger backwards and wait for her to get them and then come back in so she could get punched. And then they got some bad heel heat afterwards, and then Ty Conti hit the ring to make the save for the babyface. It looked like 4 drunk blonde strippers fighting in the parking lot. Then all of Matt Hardy's guys came out and lined the apron to prevent a save, but this had been going on for some time and nobody was coming out to do anything. But as they lined up there, then out came Pockets and Chris Flatlander and the entire Dork Order, and they together ran all the other fucking bad people off. And God almighty, is this like a TNA thing where guys don't get paid unless they appear on the taping, so at some point you have to put them in something somewhere, run in whatever, just so you put them down on the pay sheet? I wonder, could that be the explanation for this? Because did I mention this was national television and going on midnight?
I'm just happy they got all these guys in one segment. The Hardy family and the Dark Order in one segment? What a blessing.
But then they ought to warn us ahead of time. Look, the shit'll start at 9:45 Eastern, so try to be in the kitchen when that happens.
And you're not going to want to hear it, and I know why you fast-forwarded and you weren't wrong.
All right.
Anna Jay has potential. Anna Jay looks like a star. She's a little bigger, not bigger, she's taller and more fit than a lot of the girls there. And I don't know, she's young and she just started 1.5 years ago or whatever. I know why you didn't watch this match, and you would have hated this match if you had watched it. Forget about Penelope Ford. Anna Jay has a lot of talent.
Well, I'd like to forget about Penelope Ford. But anyway, speaking of forgetting about things, the main event. How can we forget that? Minoru Suzuki and Lance Archer against Moxley and Kingston. And again, I just can't help but look at this from a standpoint of anybody trying to watch this program who is not in the AEW type of wrestling fans bubble and is so forgiving of Minoru Suzuki that they can't see that he's a 50-something-year-old, smaller, nearly immobile from injuries, Japanese fellow who does shit that looks phony. Yes, he's a shooter, a world-renowned fucking shooter. He's also all the things that I just said to a person who doesn't know what his background or reputation is, and he can't do this shit anymore. And it's a thrill for all these guys who were fans of that area of Japanese wrestling to get to work with him, but it's brutal on the fucking viewers. And not only that, but again, this is the lights out match because Moxley can't do anything else. If he has a match, all this shit's going to happen, no matter what the rules are. No DQ, it's going to happen. DQ, it's still going to happen. And just bury the referee. Lights out, they're going to do even more of it because that's all he can fucking do. And Kingston, as we've said, I like Kingston because he's a hell of a promo and you can tell he's a real kind of guy. But he needs to be the gimmick. Again, if you have Eddie Kingston, you don't need a Eddie Kingston tag team with a partner that works just like Eddie Kingston. Having matches against people that do shit just like Eddie Kingston. It's like having the Sheik and the Sheik against the Sheik and the Sheik. Kingston would stand out because he has no physique. And he has no credibility as a backstory, as he came out of nowhere in wrestling for the most part because he was on indies all those years. That's a story unto itself. Great, tell it. But you've got Moxley, who was a WWE superstar in the main events, and he comes and he starts having the same kind of garbage matches or worse as the guy who's supposed to be the fucking street brawler from the Bronx or wherever the fuck. And guess how this match started? Jump start. 4-way on floor. Suzuki gets 2 chairs and gives Moxley one, and they go out on the ramp and crash chairs at each other. When they go back to the ring, there's 2 kendo sticks already in the ring from whatever the other guys have been doing. And then Kingston and Suzuki get in the ring and let each other throw the chops at each other. Here, hit me. Now I'll hit you. And we're all going to laugh. While Archer and Moxley had completely disappeared from the entire scene. And then Kingston goes under the ring and pulls out a table. We weren't 2 minutes in. And I couldn't watch that anymore because I knew it just, how much garbage can they pull out from under the ring? How many stupid stunts can they do to try to hurt themselves? Most of them that look bad because they either require obvious cooperation or you can't make the furniture work that way. Right as I said, we're 2 minutes in, and look at this. I paused it. There was 13 minutes left in the show. 13 more minutes of this shit would have been intolerable. I know when there's a match this bad and this stupid, I feel bad myself for not talking about every stupid thing and really cussing the guys for having a garbage match. But I wasn't worried about this because I knew that Moxley's going to have another one, just exactly like it, the very next time he gets in the ring. So what else went on?
Well, there's lots more of the garbage back and forth. I love Kingston. And he's a local guy, a hometown guy. I just wish it wasn't this match. Match was awful. Moxley is, to me, the most boring. He's the most boring brawler I've ever seen. He's just so unappealing. I hate his matches. The big finish, we've talked about the problem where everyone's theme music has to hit right before they enter. That's usually with the people that work there. Music hits. And all of a sudden, on the runway, the name flashes. Homicide. And then out from the other side of the arena, Homicide jumps the rail and gets involved because he was Eddie Kingston's mentor. And then he gets involved in the finish, and Kingston and Moxley win.
Oh, boy. And I like Homicide. I've worked with him a bunch. He's, hey, that Cornette, he's a crazy white boy. But goddamn it. The guy shows up, and then they say, oh, he's Eddie Kingston's mentor. Has Homicide's name ever been mentioned in conjunction with Eddie Kingston ever before?
Not on AEW
on
TV
this program, on this television program.
Not on AEW TV that I'm aware of.
in this world that we live in of AEW right now, and also the music he used to use in Ring of Honor with oh, God damn it. It was a hip hop version of the policewoman, right? The sirens, and then some hip hop music or whatever. I assume that wasn't it or did Tony Khan pay for that? I don't even know who did it.
I don't know.
So would anybody recognize the music? That's why you said they had his name on the stage?
They had his name on the stage.
That might have spoiled the surprise. Did they see the name first or see Homicide first?
Well, then we got the interesting moment where the name flashed, the music's playing, people still don't really know what's going on. Homicide's coming out the other side through the crowd, and Taz has to acknowledge, "What? I saw that. What? Homicide? What? What's that word? What?" You didn't know what to say.
Damn it.
Eventually, there was a little bit of a chant for Homicide after it got going, but right away, I don't think people knew who it was because he had the mask on too. Or bandana, I should say.
Bandana, yes. But again, yes, in New York, that's the perfect place for Homicide to do something. I'm not taking issue with that. They knew they were going to run the Arthur Ashe Stadium. They didn't have this idea. Did they have it at the last minute when Homicide showed up? Obviously not, because they had his lighting treatment ready and music for him. So then shouldn't they have even said in the last week or two, just somehow Kingston might mention his name? I'm going to hang out with my old buddy Homicide all afternoon at the fucking barrio or wherever, and then I'm going to fucking go kick the shit out of these other guys. Or just something to where he doesn't just, as Jim Hurd would say, drop out of a helicopter. Anyway, there you have my opinions of that show. They were great on Wednesday, and then after Punk and Hobbs, it fell back into the AEW amateur hour hole with the secondary talent, a burnout crowd, and overdone matches that are the same every fucking time you see them. So, and I had people cussing me on the internet last week because I said that it was a great show on Wednesday. Well, now he's taking money from Tony Khan. Well, I guess I'm going to have to send it back now because this fucking sucked. Tony, you got a refund coming, pal.
How much is he paying you?
Well, a lot more than he's paying you.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Well, I get my checks from an LLC in Delaware, for the record.
Well,
but
I get my money in a fucking Red Goose shoebox in the parking lot of the Home Depot in Smyrna, Georgia.
Well, I don't want to talk too much about that right now. There may be a record of that transaction. But Jim, the thing is, no matter what you say about this review, fans left happy. Fans left wanting more AEW. If it had gone the other way, there may have been an uprising with all these people leaving the complex, the US Open, Citi Field, Arthur Ashe Stadium. But there was no uprising, so instead, all those people can go home and have some uprising food and some of the best bread they can have.
No, there was an uprising, all right. There was an uprising because all the people saw that program and immediately they realized they were sick to their stomachs and they upchucked everywhere. That was the uprising because this program made them sick to their stomach because their gut health leaves something to be desired. They're not putting the right stuff on their stomach. Folks, the folks at Uprising Foods can help you because Uprising's mission is to liberate all of us from a fundamentally broken food system that is stealing our health. Did you know, Brian, that the real devil in the food world is the snowball effect of silent inflammation? I don't know what the fuck that is, but it makes no noise, so you can't tell it's there, and it apparently has something to do with your stomach because of the shit you eat. We all eat a lot of shit. Well, you need to be eating better shit, and we can tell you how. The folks at Uprising have cracked the code. They may be working together with Codecademy. They've cracked the code on healthy bread. You simply cannot find something this healthy that tastes this good, that's this fresh. You can't find it. Nowhere, no how. 2 net carbs per serving, 6 grams of protein, and 9 grams of fiber. They cover paleo, clean keto, low carb, high fiber, dairy-free, grain-free lifestyles. All the Uprising products are baked with real superfood ingredients. They're not food, folks. They're superfood. That's why they don't taste like food. They taste like superfood, which many of you have probably never had before. Almonds, MCT oil, apple cider vinegar, egg whites, psilocybin husks, psyllium. Yeah, that's true. I tried the psilocybin, and that was way different than the psyllium. And olive oil also. Uprising, I'll have you know, folks, has made prebiotic fiber delicious. It couldn't have been any worse. And they've done it with their patent-pending breakthrough in psyllium husk activation. And if you've ever had your psyllium husk activated, in most states in this country, it costs $100, and the penalty for doing so is 2 to 4 months in jail. However, it makes fantastic digestive health absurdly easy for all of us. It's all about your digestive health, folks. What you put in your stomach, how it breaks it down, and how it comes out. And I guarantee you eat this superfood, it will come out in spades. It'll come out in chunks. It'll come out in drips. It'll all come out. Let it all hang out. It all comes down to taste, though. And healthy foods, quote unquote, are littered with broken promises, but Uprising has nailed the taste factor on both their sourdough-esque cubes. Esque is sort of like a sourdough-ish type of thing without actually being that. And the crunch factor on their newly launched Freedom Chips. Boy, I tell you what, these things will set you free, folks. Free from a life of bad gut health. And anyway, have I mentioned the healthy superfoods? Have I mentioned that, Brian?
You have. Healthy.
I have. Well, good. Folks, Uprising is offering our listeners $10 to forget that I ever did this spot. No, they're offering our listeners $10 off the starter bundle. The starter bundle at Uprising includes 2 of the superfood cubes. See, it's a superfood, and it comes in a cube. It's that sourdough-esque type of thing it's
great.
That you say is great, and that many other people do as well. And there's a 4-pack of Freedom Chips. So the starter bundle includes 2 superfood cubes.
Superfood.
Yes, that's sourdough-esque. And a 4-pack of the Freedom Chips to try out for your very own. Folks, what you don't eat, you can plant in the backyard and grow you some more of this shit. Go to uprisingfood.com/JCE, and the discount will be automatically applied at checkout. That's uprisingfood.com, UPRISING, uprisingfood.com/JCE to get $10 off your first purchase of the starter bundle that will be automatically applied at checkout. It's sourdough-esque. It's crunch-esque. Much as we talk about stuff that is wrestling-esque, it's pertaining to wrestling and pertaining to sourdough without actually being that self-same thing. Uprisingfood.com.
We like it, and it's actually fun if you have kids because it comes as like you said, it's like a brick, and you get to cut your own slices. The kids like doing that, and you watch their fingers.
You possibly discipline the children with a brick.
No, why would that be what you thought I meant?
You were like, I like it. It's a brick, and you can hit these little bastards with it.
No, a delicious edible brick.
Well, there you go. And look at it, folks. Not like sourdough bread, but like an edible brick.
No, don't look at it like that. Look at it like the most healthy, wonderful, fiber-filled bread you've ever had.
It does have a lot of fiber.
A lot of fiber, and that's important.
Yeah.
Just ask Austin Idol. He's always talking about fiber.
There you go. And that's why it will make you not only regular, but also unstoppable. Uprising Food.
That's right. Well, speaking of Uprising, before we get some questions, you have anything on your docket that we have to get to?
I do have one thing. This is nothing earth-shaking, but just something that I thought might be one of those things that make you go, I realized this the other day when I was watching one of these television programs, and I had to look up a few statistics to get this information, but I kind of knew what it was going to be. Brian, would you say that it's fair to say that a lot of the more modern wrestling fans out there, especially the ones that have bought into this, the elite type of the style of that wrestling and the modern tomfoolery that goes on, they think of Jim Cornette as a person not only stuck in the past, but also they think, well, if Cornette was booking this stuff, it'd be a bunch of old guys doing 10 and 15-minute headlocks, and he'd have a bunch of old pot-bellied, buggy-whipped arm farts out there like they did in the territory days. That's all he'd book if he was in charge. Would you say that's a fair thing to say, that a lot of people believe that?
That's certainly what some may believe. The idea that, I think the overall idea, and it's one that unfortunately Uncle Dave has pushed, is that Jim is completely out of touch. The idea that he would have anything to do with booking today would be ridiculous because it would all go back to what you just said.
Yeah, and I would do the same thing I'd always done. I'd use the same people. I would just have everything. No, none of the kids need apply. It'd all be a bunch of old bastards, right?
Mike Mondo will be brought back, and all the other guys that you've used in the past.
There you go. So I thought, well, let's just see, for example, let's just make a little comparison about when I've been actually in charge of something and not merely the hired help or had inherited a talent roster or whatever. When I was all in charge of something and could determine who I wanted to be working in the territory or in the promotion, what did I use, young guys, or did I use a bunch of old farts? And, of course, I didn't figure Ohio Valley Wrestling into this because by the nature of that, everybody was young, right? So that wouldn't be fair. In Ring of Honor, most everybody was young, probably not as young completely as the people in OVW, but at the same time, I inherited a lot of that roster and didn't assemble him from scratch, but there were a few veterans that I brought into Ring of Honor to work with the younger guys so that they could learn experience and timing. What CM Punk is doing now, what he wants to do with that roster. And the veterans that I brought in to Ring of Honor in 2009, 10, 11, so 10, 11, 12 years ago, were Lance Storm. Lance Storm is the same age as Chris Jericho is now, but this was 11 years ago. It was Matt Hardy. 10 years later, he's on AEW television. It was Shelton Benjamin. He came in 2010. He's on Raw right now. So I didn't have any senior citizens there, but the real test would be Smoky Mountain Wrestling, right? Because I put that roster together from scratch, personally booked every single person, decided who would be pushed, et cetera, right? So let's just look at this for a second, because I found this kind of interesting. When you'll remember Bullet Bob Armstrong, obviously, we've talked so much about the Armstrong family and Bullet Bob, and he was an instrumental part in Smoky Mountain Wrestling. And we used him as a retired wrestling legend who had retired from the ring and become the commissioner of Smoky Mountain Wrestling. He was the authority figure. He was the guy that put his foot down. And finally, after about a year and a half in 1993, he was pretty much forced to resign as commissioner of Smoky Mountain Wrestling and come out of retirement to get even with me and my group of heels, right? And everybody, oh my God, he's coming back out of retirement, this wrestling legend, this older fellow. That year, 1993, that he did all that and came out of retirement, he was 9 years younger than Sting and 3 years older than Chris Jericho.
Wow, get out of here. I never thought of it that way.
Well, we're going to think about a few other things. At that time in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, Bullet Bob Armstrong, who was 9 years younger than Sting and 3 years older than Chris Jericho, was 15 years older than any other regular talent on the roster, who, as I recall, the next oldest would have been Ricky Morton, who was at the time 37 years old, give or take a year or two. You never know with Rick.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
Bullet Bob Armstrong's main singles opponent during the run of him trying to get even with me, most of the singles matches, was Terry Funk. Terry Funk then was either the same age as Chris Jericho or 1 year older, and he was 12 years younger than Sting is now. In 1993, the Smoky Mountain Wrestling Tag Team Champions were Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson, who were 37 and 35, respectively.
That's crazy to think about.
In 2021, Matt and Nick Jackson, the Young Bucks, were the AEW Tag Team Champions till last month, and they're 36 and 32. In 1993, the Smoky Mountain Wrestling Champion was Tracy Smothers. He was 31 years old. In 2021, the AEW Champion is Kenny Olivier. He's 37. In 1993, the booker of Smoky Mountain Wrestling, Jim Cornette, was 32 years old. In 2021, the booker of AEW, Tony Khan, is 39. And if you want to go to the announce desk, in 1993, listen to this now. In 1993, Bob Caudle was 62 years old. He had over 30 years experience in wrestling broadcasting, but he was 62, and Dutch Mantell, the color guy, was 44. That's a total of 106 years for the announce team. Now, in 2021, AEW has at least a three-man booth, so let's just break this up a little bit. Tony Schiavone is 64 and Excalibur is 41. That means their combined age was 1 year younger than the combined age of the Smoky Mountain announce team in 93. But if you put Jim Ross in with Excalibur, Jim Ross is 69, Excalibur is 41. That makes the combined age 110. They're older than Bob Caudle and Dutch Mantell were in 1993. So who's booking all these old farts?
That is pretty crazy, because I was there, and it's hard to picture Ricky and Robert in their 30s at that point. That's nuts.
Because Robert started wrestling when he was 17.
How old was Candido when you brought him in? 22, 23?
Either 22 or 23. Tammy was 19, I think.
Storm and Jericho, how old were they?
Well, goddamn, do the math. He's 50 now, or is it, Lance and Chris are almost the same age, or there's a year difference or whatever, but you can Google it. But 1993 was 28 years ago, and Chris is 50 now, right? So 22, 23?
23, because they came in 94.
Or 94, that's right. Yes, because they weren't even there in 93.
Yeah. Tracy being only 31 surprised me, too. And I was friends with him. I was talking to him all the time back then. I didn't even remember that.
Actually, Tracy being 31 surprised me the other direction, because he didn't start wrestling till 1984.
Yeah.
That means that he was 22 when he started, and that's old for guys in the South. So I would have figured he'd been 29.
But he got a lot of work.
He sure did. But point is, where's all these old farts I'm noted for booking? Yes, I've booked farts that are old now, but I booked them 20 years ago.
No, Jim, the problem is you book people who wrestle like old farts.
Oh, that's the problem. Okay. You mean the ones that drew money?
Old money. It was old money.
It was old money.
We're only interested in new money in this modern day. Well, Jim, we're talking about the ages of people that you have booked in the past. Let's talk about someone who, more than likely, no matter what age you would not have booked. This question was sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Rob in Newcastle, England. Big fan of the show and love your opinions on the business.
Cheers, Rob.
However, I've sent this several times, but I think Jim is incredibly harsh on Johnny Gargano and his hatred of him. Especially after his comments on the drive-thru. I firmly believe because he's seen the shit with The Way and his Mrs. Candice LeRae, and not the feuds with Ciampa, Cole, and Andrade before that, and his work with DIY versus The Revival, American Alpha, AOP, etc. He's now firmly in the camp of, no matter what, I hate this clown because of the crap skits with The Way. Which are rotten, by the way. He's no bigger or smaller than
which are rotten, by the way.
Very good. Dick Cavett would approve of that one. He's no bigger or smaller than most of the people he's worked with, barring Samoa Joe or Karrion Kross. It says Karrion Krista, but I think he means Karrion Kross. Also, he does have some personality in there, as his feud with Ciampa showed, which was one of the main reasons I watched and continued with NXT to begin with. Although in the main, I agree with most things, I don't agree with Jim's opinion on Gargano, and believe he could have made him work if he had had him in OVW or Ring of Honor. I hope to hear your thoughts on this. Keep up the good work.
I don't hate Johnny Gargano personally. I've never even met the guy. I hate watching him wrestle on television, right? There's a difference there. And the reason is because not only that he's small and minute and the modern spot style, but also I don't believe the guy. I don't believe him. He does fucking skits in his house with his wife that are preposterous. And if he has a good match with Tommaso Ciampa, then that to me just says, well, look at these guys performing, because elsewise, this little pasty white fucking small, unimpressive looking fucking fellow shouldn't be going 30 minutes with Tommaso Ciampa, who looks like a beast. I think the guy sounds like he's playing wrestler and winking at the people when he does his funny skits and he attempts to make, because I called him Johnny Same Face, since then he attempts to make funny faces, but they're not really that funny. I'm sorry. Like Seth Rollins said, Triple H came to him and said, I don't really see anything in you. Well, I don't know why Triple H would have said that otherwise than to tell the guy he's about to be fired unless he does what he's told, because you can obviously see something in Tyler Black / Seth Rollins. I can't believe that Johnny Gargano has been in NXT all this time and nobody went up to him and said, you know what? Vince McMahon will never fucking use you on the main roster, so all we're doing is getting heat on ourselves by featuring you in this promotion to such an extent, because you're never going anywhere. It's not just about the size. It's about the overall package. Some guys are small, but they have tremendous promo ability and personality, or they can work their ass off. And I'm not talking about doing moves. I'm talking about work their ass off. Some guys are small and have not an expressive face, and I don't believe that they're real serious wrestlers. They're just playing one, and they're not visually believable or credible in any instance against most of the opposition they've got. So that means that here are two guys performing wrestling moves to each other instead of two guys having a fight or a wrestling match. And to me, Johnny Same Face Gargano fits in the category that I just described. I'm sorry. I don't see it. And if he ever does main event any large fucking show, I'll be more than happy to say that I'm sorry. But he ain't. So I don't have to worry about it.
All right. Well, let's get our next question here, Jim. This was sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Mark Selfridge in Washington, UK. Where's Washington in the UK?
I did not know that they had one.
Maybe that's not real. Could there really be a Washington? I mean, he defeated the British. Why would they have a Washington over there?
Yeah, it seems that would be like us fucking said, well, I guess we do have a bunch of towns named after British kings, including the one I live in.
Hi, Jim and Brian. How protected were signature moves back in the territory days? Are there any famous instances of backstage heat or fights following guys using another guy's move without permission?
Yes, well, I mean, there's been plenty of backstage chatter and talk about that. I'm off the top of my head, I don't know that anybody ever came to blows over somebody using the other guy's finish, but yes, they were protected. And no, the booker would explain to you when you came in a territory. Well, first he'd ask, what's your finish? Well, if it was a finish that somebody else was doing, or in the case of the Tennessee territory or someplace where the pile driver was illegal, if a guy came out, I do the pile driver. Well, not here, you don't. And some places, it was illegal to come off the top rope. when I first started watching wrestling in the Tennessee territory, if you jumped off the top rope and made contact with your opponent, that was a disqualification. That way you could do it behind the referee's back and the people would go insane. If you just stood up on the top rope and came off with a double sledge, the people would be throwing shit. But, most of the time, if somebody did somebody's move in a match just as a spot, they would hear about it afterwards, either from the offended party or from the booker or from one of the referees or whoever. No. Well, and the classic example of the off-the-top rope disqualification was, remember when Snuka was the hottest babyface in the business, they brought him to St. Louis. But Sam Muchnick wasn't going to change the rules of wrestling for one guy, but the people wanted to see the Superfly splash off the top rope, so they had him do it, and he got disqualified. But the people popped because he did the splash off the top. But yeah, no, I mean, there's been guys sometimes, well, hey, I do the fucking headlock. Well, good luck with that. There were some things that were in the public domain long before the territory days, but nobody would have done the DDT with Jake Roberts on the show. Nobody would have done the figure four with Ric Flair on the show, except if they were working with Ric Flair and it was a deal where they were dueling figure fours. Or like in the case of when they brought Buddy Landell in, the whole thing was to point him to a match with Ric Flair when they were in the same territory. So they were doing the same things. But unless it was two guys headed for a program that were doing the same move, no, you didn't see that. And I mean, now you can't help it. Everybody does every move they've ever heard of or done or seen or learned how to do in every match. And that's why that finishes don't mean as much as they used to. And also because the guys that do their finish, they do it 15 times in a match, except Kenny Olivier will not do the one-winged fairy unless he's winning with it, but he'll do his knee all day long. But, most guys would protect their finisher, and they would only do it, A, if they were going to win with it, B, if it was a crucial point in a big finish and somehow the guy got his foot on the ropes, or maybe a kick out. I mean, every once in a while in a big show with the Rock and Roll Express, we'd have Ricky Morton kick out of the rocket launcher right before he was going to make the hot tag, because how could he go on after that? He had just enough to kick out, and then we fucked up and he got a tag. But, I mean, and there's been, umpteen different times where, and you've heard guys talk about it and in shoot interviews where they say, well, I couldn't do such and such because so-and-so was already in the territory or whatever. That was good. It protected moves. It protected the guys, and it protected the guys that drew money. That just nobody in the second match could do the same shit that they were going to be doing in the main event, especially if it didn't work. And then, can you imagine if times had been different and the Hardy Boys showed up somehow in the WWF when Shawn Michaels was the champion and decided they were going to do a spot where there were 6 or 7 super kicks that didn't beat anybody in the fourth match when Michaels was in the main event? My God, there'd have been a goddamn police called. And I mean, just that would have been insane. And they wouldn't have been allowed to do it. And that's the thing with the Hardy Boys. They talked about all the things that promoters and bookers and people told them they were not allowed to do. They decided to just disregard all that advice and do everything. That's what got them over. Well, no shit. When you're allowed to do anything you want to do and stuff that other people can't do, of course you're going to get over. You're going to get attention. Doesn't mean you're any good. It means you're just fucking coloring outside the lines. You can't do it within the parameters of what everybody else works with. So, but that's why they were ostracized and or not used by people until they, had the opportunity to join with their little clique and get over in Japan and get, marks with money interested in them. But otherwise, they would have been seen as, what they were. They're small guys that are going to be on the middle of the card and do some fucking babyface-ish shit. That was pretty much in a traditional wrestling promotion. That was the ceiling for those guys. But when they're allowed to do everything they want to do and control their environment, of course they get over.
And of course it kills everything on after it.
Exactly. And it or the people they're in the ring with. That's the other side. I go back many times to Lance Storm's statement, in ECW, we broke all the rules, and then as I got older and more experienced, I learned why there were rules. There you go.
Did you ever have any issues? Because the Midnight Express were so... I mean, you guys invented so many different moves, or at least popularized so many different moves. Any issues ever with someone trying to steal your stuff in front of you?
Not in front of us.
On the same show, no one else ever...
Oh, God, good God, no. Well, nobody... See, here's the thing. At the time, Crockett's roster or the WCW roster, that was some of the best talent in the business. They wouldn't have tried to do the Midnight Express stuff because that would have been basically saying to everybody, not only in the locker room, but out in the crowd, hey, we got to do this stuff with these other guys that are on the card because they're more over than we are. So no, nobody would have wanted to do that, even if the stuff was over. In other territories, you know, shit started being done. And you see it to this day, the flapjacks and the attempts at the Vegematics or the whatever the case. But not on the same card with us. That would have been admitting inferiority. And now, wait a minute. I will say one thing. When we brought the Fantastics in and put them over in a non-title match on television, they beat us with the rocket launcher. That was on purpose. That was my finish, to get them over not only as a team that could beat us, but actually as a team that could perpetrate our own moves against us, because that was the weapon that the Midnight Express had, that they had all these fucking wild moves, the double team moves they could pull out. The Fantastics come in, they do the same thing. They're the same thing as the Rock and Roll, yin and yang, good and evil. And Tommy Rogers had such a hell of a splash off the top. Okay, they'll beat us with the rocket launcher. And the problem was that Bobby Fulton was a little shorter than Stan, and he couldn't really hardly reach Tommy on the top rope, but he made the motion and it worked. But that, yes, you do that because that's helping the angle and the issue and the program, but you don't just do other people's shit on the same card, except now few people have specific shit because everybody does everything, like we said.
Well, Jim, if a wrestler is in the back and they notice their move being stolen in the ring, perhaps they want to seek out legal advice about what they could do to punish the perpetrator who is in the ring stealing the maneuver.
So you're telling me that if some no-good gum-bumping sack of snake feces decides to steal your Vegematic, decides to steal your Double Goozle, decides to steal the Gravedigger, decides to steal all the famous moves that you have come up with, we know who you can call to get even. This man.
Call Stephen P. News. If you need to sue. An outlaw mud show or two. Still to the rest.
Yes, even though that was a lackluster pitch because of a lackluster transition, folks, you will not get an attorney or a lawyer lacking in luster when you retain the services of the one, the only, the consigliere of the cult of Cornette himself, Stephen P. New, at newlawoffice.com, 888-692-8084. No, instead, you will not get a person who is lacking in luster, who is completely lusterless. You will get a person that's so lusterful, he's got lust all over him. We talked about having intercourse with Stephen P. New on The Experience. The verbal and social intercourse that you have with this man when he gets inside your head and he determines all the ways that you've been screwed around, and then he fabricates and customizes a defense, a prosecution, a case to where he can bring the perpetrators to justice. He's lusty. He's full of lust is what he is, instead of being lackluster. And he can be your lustful attorney if you call 888-692-8084 or email newlawoffice.com. And you can go to the website and see the many varieties of ways that he has helped people in the past, people that have been downtrodden, people that have been taken advantage of, people that have been the victims of malfeasance and greed. He gets them all paid. So if you want the most lusterful attorney in all of the legal profession today, a man who's so full of lust it's coming out the orifices of his body, ladies and gentlemen, no more lackluster individuals for you, the man to call, Stephen P. New. You've got a pretty firm idea, Brian, of how much lust that Stephen P. New possesses.
We recently talked about it because we were talking about that famous Randy Savage promo where he accused Hulk Hogan of having lust in his eyes for Elizabeth, and Stephen said he doesn't know anything about lust.
Yeah, he's an amateur when it comes to lust. Stephen P. New's a professional. So have some verbal intercourse with Stephen P. New and find out that he's full of lust and luster. And he's not lacking. He's not lacking in any area.
This is the worst spot we've ever done for him. He's a great man and a fantastic attorney.
A fantastic attorney. And did I ever tell you the time that Terry Runnels came up to me and JR and didn't know that the word spunk had two meanings? Yep. We said, that boy, I'll tell you what, that Marlena, she's a spunky girl, full of spunk. And she was upset about that until she found out there was another way to say that. Anyway, Stephen P. New.
All right, well, let's somehow transition from that. Boy, that was an abrupt ending there. Jim,
that's usually the cases that Stephen P. New brings to the court have an abrupt ending. They find out, wait a minute, new law office, holy shit, we got to bring this to an end right now. They'll kill us.
Well, Jim, this next question sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Reese in Wales. Leading on from your discussion...
We got nobody in Iowa anymore?
Leading on from you discussing how you would have tried to pitch Adam Cole to Vince, I was wondering how you would have tried selling FTR to him.
Oh, God. That actually would have been a longer road to hoe. Because where you could compare Adam Cole to Roddy Piper in that environment, put him with, some guys that he can talk for and be the center of attention. I mean, I would compare FTR to Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson, but that wouldn't necessarily warm the cockles of Vince McMahon's heart. They were there for a year, yes, but he didn't get... he never pushed, he never featured wrestling heels. So I don't know exactly anyone that you could compare them to that he would have a fondness for in his heart. It wouldn't be the same as us old-time NWA fans or people who are fans of great wrestling matches. I would have just gone straight ahead and say, look, not only are they on point with everything, but they make everybody else they're in the ring with look better. And even Vince would know that a wrestler takes longer to get over than somebody who has a striking visual appearance or has, some kind of unnatural size or look or whatever. It's the Arn Anderson and Sid Vicious fucking deal. Sid can show up on TV for 2 or 3 weeks. You can get him over because of the way he looks and you can smash him over. But then you've got what you've got. He can't have a long single match. He's not a polished worker and doing finishes, so you can't work a lot of great returns. He has to just be the giant guy, whereas Arn doesn't come out and instantly get over because there's nothing striking about him visually. You have to expose people week after week to he keeps winning and he keeps having good matches and he keeps showing that and he keeps talking and getting himself over. And that takes a while. But once a guy like that gets over, then he's over for a longer period of time and he can stay over and you can do things in the finishes where you can beat him or you can put him over or whatever. With a guy like Sid, once you've beaten him, maybe once, especially twice, it blooms off the rose and it's more of an attraction where people want to see it every once in a while because it's the same thing all the time. You don't have as many different pathways to go with a multi-dimensional performer like, as Arn, as you don't have as many to go with as a guy like Sid. It is what it is. So for people, whether it be Vince or whether it even be, apparently Tony Khan needs to be sold on FTR now. Now they've started to get a little TV time. It only took a year and a half. But a lot of times, even people who should know, like Vince, or who shouldn't know because he has no experience to know, like Tony Khan, don't understand it takes longer to get a wrestler over than it takes to get an attraction over. But once you do it, the wrestler stays over longer than the attraction. He's got better will with the fans in their minds. And that's why when you're trying to get a wrestler over, you have to put them on at the start every week, either working or talking or maybe both. They have to build up a string of wins. They have to build up some credibility, and you have to let the people see gradually over a period of weeks and weeks everything they can do. Instead of the Giant can come in, Hulk smash, boom, he's over. But that's what, if you just go by what the quarter-hour rating is for, one particular show and say, okay, well, I want to put all the people who did great quarter-hour ratings, I'm going to put them on all the rest of the shows. Well, then you've just got, in most cases, the shit that he's been stuck with for a long time now. Where Pockets, because he was a two dogs fucking on the side of the road attraction at the start, did a big quarter hour, so you put him on all the time, but it's the same dogs that fuck the same way, doggy style. There's nothing different about it. It's the same fucking thing. It's a one-note joke, and the quarter-hour ratings don't go anywhere because they've seen it. That's the difference. If you just go by the ratings of people when they first pop up on a program, then you're pushing a lot of the two dogs fucking attractions, and you're not getting guys over for the long run that are the backbone of the card that features those attractions. But what do I know?
Well, before we wrap things up, we'll find out a few more times what you know, Jim. We have a few more questions before we get to a couple songs. This next one, sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Daniel in Fort Smith, Arkansas. Hello there, Jim and Brian. Hope all is well. Recently, Sportster has released a list of AEW wrestlers and their weaknesses. I thought Jim would enjoy commentating on this, since it's observations he has been making since the beginning. And I have a list here. Have you seen this list?
I have not seen this list. No, has it been in Funk and Wagnall's porch since noon today in a mayonnaise jar?
It has not, but this is a list from Sportster, a site of ill repute, or actually I don't know what repute it has, but 10 great AEW wrestlers and their biggest weaknesses. So how about this? I'll name the wrestler. You tell me what the weakness is, the biggest weakness.
Okay.
Number 10, Cody Rhodes.
His ego.
I think maybe you got it. Playing a babyface. There have been few moments in Cody Rhodes' career where he's been able to be a babyface, but it has never been something that has come naturally to him. He played a heel in WWE for the majority of his career for a reason. But in AEW, he has tried to force the idea that he is an American hero following in his father's footsteps. It hasn't connected with the audience, and they have let him know. His pro-American promos during his feud with Anthony Ogogo fell very flat and really hurt him as a talent. He is a natural heel, and that's something he's great at. Being a babyface just doesn't seem to work for him.
Well, I don't know that it's not that he can't be a babyface, or just that for whatever reason, whether it's the start and stop, come and go booking whenever he gets a gig that he wants more, like a reality show or a game show, or whether it's his almost universally dislikable wife trying to shoehorn herself into things that she's not prepared for or wanted in. I mean, she was a babyface, then she was a heel, then she had a faction, then she didn't, then she's peeking in the window at everything going on, and all of those things. The fans of AEW like the other vice presidents because at least they're all in and they're all there. But Cody comes and goes if he's not got something else better to do in their mind. I think that's all part of it. He could be a good baby face with somebody booking him like one and, not giving him a retinue of minions led by his wife that nobody wants to see on television.
Number 9, Chris Jericho, biggest weakness.
Jesus, the carbs.
The commentary.
I don't think his commentary is worse than his conditioning. I mean, my God, his upper body is as thick as Dick the Bruiser's was in the 80s.
On the topic of commentary, it says here, this isn't something he has excelled at so far. Jericho tends to be very loud when he's behind the desk. It is something that makes watching the matches quite distracting, as he is often screaming to hype up even the smallest of moments, rather than allowing things to build naturally. And I agree with that 100%.
Well, yeah, but remember when the show first started and he'd do color, it was fun because he was a heel and he was being a heel. And there wasn't a lot else to look at anyway. But now he's a babyface. It's 2 years later, and he's doing the same shit. And it's just it's not as good.
Hey, listen, everyone who was a Van Halen fan or otherwise even loved the David Lee Roth interview. He was quick, he was funny, he was clever. And then he got a radio show, and you realize there's too much Dave. And I think it's the same thing with Jericho. But Jim, number 8, what is Darby Allin's biggest weakness?
His size.
I thought you may have gotten this one, but actually, according to Sportster, and what do you know, promos.
Well, I didn't even think that deep about that because I'm just thinking if Darby Allin was 40 pounds heavier, he would be one of the top baby faces in the business. But that's another thing, yes, is that he doesn't, if he does speak, which is intermittently, he speaks like he's cruising on Lake Havasoma. Like a lot of like Jungle Boy. They just got no oomph.
All right, well, for the next one, number 7, what is the biggest weakness? And remember, this is a family show of Kenny Omega.
Oh, where do I start? Just the fact that he thinks that he's the greatest wrestling artist in the world and he's really a self-trained, prissy-prancing dipshit. Could that possibly be it?
The correct answer? Promos. Jim, what is Orange Cassidy's biggest weakness?
Jesus. Well, I don't know whether it's his weakness or whether it was his parents' weakness or not, because they must have fucked in a flower bed because he's a bloomin' idiot.
I think you got this one. His biggest weakness is being serious.
There you go.
He is so relaxed and chilled out that seeing him attempt to fire up or be aggressive just doesn't connect. This is something that is actually limiting his character at the moment, as he's not able to break through into the next level where his in-ring work belongs.
Well, he's not going to break through to any level past where he's at right now because he's established to people that he's a phony fucking comedian that's not funny, and for people who like phony fucking comedy that's not funny, they like him, and for people who don't, they ain't going to start. So it is what it is right now, because it's the same joke being told every week for years now, and it's old.
Number 5, Jim, according to the Sportster, what is Lance Archer's biggest weakness?
I can't help but think they could have got more out of Lance if, from the start, instead of giving him a manager that was bigger, at least around, than he is, and is tall, and never interferes, can't physically interfere, and it was one of the greatest interviews in wrestling, but can't do an interview as a manager to save his life because it's a different art. And then having Lance be competitive with all the midgets, including Dwarf Dong Sucker, and then burying him by having him allegedly assault and throw around camera people and, crew minions that just wouldn't ever happen in that way anywhere on the face of the earth. He's got good size. He can work. He's been around. He could probably talk a little bit if they'd let him. The only problem I have with his matches usually is he does that goddamn walk the rope moonsault in every match, and it's obvious cooperation. But otherwise than that, I think it's the way he's been booked and presented. I don't know. What do they say?
I think you kind of got this one in a sense, and we've talked about it in the past, but according to them, the biggest weakness is his ability to remain a heel or a babyface.
Well, that's part of the booking. Yeah, whose side is he on? He's willy-nilly beating people up one week, and the next week he's saving people, and he likes this guy, and then he don't like. You can't tell. It's he's just been presented as back and forth, and what the fuck's going on? Oh, let's stick Archer in there. Whatever.
What is the biggest weakness of Jon Moxley?
He doesn't know how to have a fucking more than one kind of match, and it's a garbage match. He's fixated and has a fetish for these deathmatch garbage pieces of shit like the bank-addicted drug robber, and he's been lucky enough to get a job with the two biggest companies in the United States in the last 20 years and still wants to go out to fucking barns and pig pens and stick thumbtacks in himself with the rest of this trash for even a little bit of money, but certainly not as much as he makes with his main jobs, which he ought to be taking care of, but instead he's out fostering relationships with garbage people and garbage promotions around the world. So how many of those are a weakness?
According to the Sportster, it's character development. Everything has been about him being a crazed person who is slightly unhinged and will do whatever he wants. While this has been entertaining at times, it would be nice to see his character develop beyond just that, which is what his biggest weak spot is at the moment. Jim,
have I mentioned lately how much I hate the word character and how his character will develop? And even guys in the business are now saying character. And it's just preposterous.
Maybe they're talking about his character, not his character on air, but his personal integrity, his personal character.
His moral turpitude.
That's right. His character still needs to develop. He's an immature young man. Jim, number 3, what is the biggest weakness of Brian Cage?
Wow, he's got to get his shit in. He's a fucking bodybuilding beast that tries to wrestle like a cruiserweight. He's another of these modern guys that can't get the picture of what wrestling really is, and he just wants to do cool moves. And maybe it's, he gained, 80 pounds in 3 years, so maybe it's the supplements that's affected his mind, or maybe his wife tried to get him fired by bitching about the way he's been booked. Maybe that's weighing on him heavily. That's a detriment. I don't know. He works like a robot, and he's a giant beast that you could do something with if he could figure out how to work like a giant beast instead of wanting to do cool shit because it's fun. He's a fucking hobby pro wrestler. He's not in it to make money and be a business. He likes doing it. It's like collecting stamps.
The correct answer is charisma.
Well, there you go. You could have saved me some time there. He has nothing. He's a robot.
Number 2, again, family program. What is the biggest weakness of the Young Bucks?
Again,
according to Sportster, not according to Jim Cornette.
Well, no, you asked me a question. I'm answering.
Okay,
if they get my answer, I'm giving the right answer. If they come close to it, then what is not the weakness of the Young Bucks? Their interviews are annoying in a bad way. They look like middle school children. They do the cartoon style of over-the-top sports entertainment wrestling where nobody sells anything and it's all just it looks like a video game because that's what they're trying for. I honestly can't. What is a positive? They have 2 arms and 2 legs. They got the proper number of fingers and toes. Their blood pressure's okay. I can't see a positive as relates to the professional wrestling industry for those two to be in it.
Their biggest weakness, following rules.
Well, there you go. We just talked about that about 15, 20 minutes ago.
The lack of rule following hurts their matches and makes the officials look stupid, which then damages.
Oh, they're talking about the rules in the matches. I thought they were talking about the rules of wrestling, such as don't hit people with 17 finishes and don't cover them, things like that. But they're talking about the actual rules of the matches.
That's right. Which they say here, not paying attention to those rules damages the product even further. Fans want to see the tag ropes being used, and they don't want constant double teams throughout, which is what makes this a big weakness for the duo. And finally, Jim, number 1. This one you'll never get because I don't even know why they picked this. What's the biggest weakness of Jungle Boy?
Well, I mean, we mentioned he doesn't do promos. He said himself in public he runs when they want him to do a promo, which is, again, every wrestler since television was invented. If you come to them and say, let's do promo. Oh, yes, that's what they wanted to do more than anything else. This guy didn't want to do it. His size, but he's a young underdog baby face, so size doesn't have to be a disqualifier. Just beside, he has great personality in the ring. He has no personality when he's speaking or on camera doing an interview or he has to do his athleticism in the ring. That's his charisma. It's like he's another one of these guys that just sits in the corner and looks at his phone. That's the impression you get. Anything else? So did they label it charisma? Did they label it promo? Did they label it oomph? I don't know what.
Relies on others.
What?
It says here that his reliance upon others is his biggest weakness. At the moment, he always relied upon others in his matches, whether it be Christian Cage, Luchasaurus, or Marco Stunt. AEW has to be careful in not booking him this way too much. Fans want to be able to take him seriously at some point, and they've got a point there.
That's not his weakness. That's booking again. I mean, every person on the list that they mentioned has weaknesses because of the booking, but we were trying to go with, besides Lance Archer, who I couldn't really think of a horrible fucking weakness, we're trying to go with what's wrong with that individual person.
Well, there it is, the Sportster's list of the 10 biggest or the 10 AEW stars and their weaknesses, and there was a squeak from my chair, which will be retiring quite soon. And Jim,
when is that retirement ceremony? Is it going to be on Raw or SmackDown?
I just received an email that the other chair is in the mail, so it'll be here within the next couple of days, and at that point, I have to explain to Suzanne why we're using space in the garage to have a chair that is broken, but I won't throw it away. Because I don't know what to do with it. But with that, the drive-thru has closed. Top that, Jared.
Yeah.
Of course, we'll be back this weekend with the Jim Cornette Experience, wherever you find your favorite podcast. Get access to full episodes, clips of the episodes, and omnibus collections, the official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. Go there, subscribe today, almost 250,000 subscribers, and growing every single day. And of course, thank you to all of our guest artists. Get well, Travis Heckle. Go through the channel and see his very popular artwork. And if you want to be a guest artist, get in touch with the show. Send an email to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com. And if it's a fit, we'll see what we can do. Of course, the official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. Get access to classic episodes of The Drive-Thru and The Experience on Patreon. Patreon.com/Cornette. For only $5 a month, you get access to the archive from the beginning in 2013. Patreon.com/Cornette. You can follow Jim on Twitter at @TheJimCornette. You can follow me on Twitter at @GreatBrianLast. You can hear me on the 605 Superpodcast at 605pod.com. Available wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Of course, it's time, for real this time, we think, Cornette's Collectibles at JimCornette.com. Or The Death of Hotchkiss Featherbottom.
I was about it this weekend, October 1st, Friday, after 6 p.m. Eastern. Either JimCornette.com goes on the air or Hotchkiss Featherbottom goes to the bottom of the Ohio River.
And if you are the family of Hotchkiss Featherbottom, perhaps you need to sue. Of course, the drive-thru is brought to you by the law office of Stephen P. New, 888-692-8084. Get even with Stephen at newlawoffice.com. But until this weekend on The Experience, and next week right back here on The Drive-Thru, with much less Smackdown and Rampage, that's a promise. For Jim Cornette, I'm the Great Brian Last. Tally-ho!